I never thought I'd be standing at my father's grave watching my sister hold hands with the man I was supposed to marry. The man who had promised me forever just 3 months before. But that wasn't even the most shocking part of that day. When Mr. Turner read my father's will later that afternoon, the room went so silent you could hear the antique grandfather clock ticking from the hallway. My sister's smug smile disappeared as quickly as my tears. Sometimes life has a way of delivering justice when you least expect it, but I'm getting ahead of myself. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. Growing up as Richard Martinez's younger daughter meant living in Victoria's shadow. My father built Martinez Custom Furniture from nothing, transforming raw lumber into works of art that graced mansions and boutique hotels across the country. Victoria, Tori to everyone who mattered, was his natural successor, confident, charming, and calculating. Then there was me, Olivia, lived to the few people who bothered to know me, the quiet daughter who preferred sketching designs to commanding rooms, the one who could sand a walnut table to perfect smoothness, but stumbled over small talk at the shop's client events. "Liv, would you grab more napkins from the kitchen?" Mom called over the buzz of conversation filling our living room. Victoria's showing the Westerfields her portfolio for their lake house project. I glanced across the room where Tori held court, her sleek black dress and perfect posture making her look like she belonged in the pages of Architectural Digest. Nathan, my boyfriend of 7 years, stood beside her, smiling as she gestured, dramatically describing whatever vision she had for the Westerfields' vacation home. "Sure, Mom," I replied, slipping away from the quarterly Martinez Custom Furniture client mixer I'd helped organize but would receive no credit for. In the kitchen, I took a moment to breathe. These events always left me feeling hollow, invisible despite the hours I'd put into making them successful. I gathered the linen napkins Mom insisted on using, smoothing the creases with my fingers. "Need some help?" Nathan appeared in the doorway, his familiar presence instantly calming the anxious flutter in my chest. His dark curls were neatly trimmed for the event, his blue eyes crinkling at the corners as he smiled at me. "My hero," I said, passing him half the stack. "Rescued from napkin duty." More like rescuing myself. If I have to hear about the revolutionary integration of bespoke furnishings with lakeside aesthetics one more time. He rolled his eyes, mimicking Tori's affected client voice. I laughed, the tension in my shoulders easing. This was why I loved him. 7 years together, and he still knew exactly when I needed rescuing from family functions. "She's just doing her job," I said, though we both knew Tori's performance was as much about overshadowing me as it was about impressing clients. "Your designs for the Westerfield project were better," Nathan said quietly, brushing a strand of hair from my face, more authentic to the space. I shrugged. Dad already decided. Tori's vision is more marketable. "You mean flashier, less timeless?" Nathan frowned. "You should fight for your concepts more, Liv. Your father would appreciate your perspective if you just spoke up." If only it were that simple. 28 years of family dynamics couldn't be solved by speaking up. Before I could respond, the kitchen door swung open. "There you are," Tori said, her smile tight as she looked between us. "Dad's looking for those napkins, Liv. And Nathan? Howard was asking about the sustainability presentation for next week's board meeting." Nathan squeezed my hand before following my sister out, saying over his shoulder, "Don't hide too long." I watched them go, noticing how Tori placed her hand on Nathan's arm as they navigated through the doorway. It was nothing. A casual touch between my sister and the man who had proposed to me under the willow trees at the park last month. A vintage ring now nestled on my finger. Nothing to worry about. That's what I told myself anyway. "He's going to love it," Maya assured me, taking another sip of her latte as we sat in our corner of Lighthouse Cafe 3 weeks later. "It's gorgeous, Liv." I rotated the leather-bound portfolio on the table between us. Inside were my designs for Nathan's anniversary gift. Custom shelving for his book collection, with hidden compartments for his most treasured first editions. 7 years together deserved something special. Something that spoke to how well I knew him. I hope so. Dad finally agreed to let me use the shop after hours to build it. I tapped my fingers nervously on the table. It's the first time he's trusted me with a project without supervision. Maya raised an eyebrow. "You've been working wood since you were 12. Your father needs to recognize your talent." "Baby steps," I said, closing the portfolio. Speaking of steps, I applied for the Westridge Design Fellowship in Seattle. Maya's eyes widened. "Seattle? That's far." "It's prestigious, life-changing, and Dr. Chen thinks I have a real shot." I hadn't told anyone about the application, except Maya and my mentor, Dr. Gabrielle Chen, who ran the design program at the community college where I worked in administration. "Does Nathan know?" I looked down at my coffee. "Not yet. I don't want to get his hopes up, or mine. The odds are—" "Don't start with the odds," Maya cut in. "You're brilliant. Your work deserves recognition." My phone buzzed with a text from Nathan. "Running late tonight. Meeting with Tori about the sustainability pitch dragging on." "Rain check on dinner?" I tried to ignore the prickle of unease. "Third. Rain check this month." "Everything okay?" Maya asked, watching my expression. "Fine. Nathan's working late with Tori again." I pocketed my phone. "The big sustainability pitch for Sierra Hotels." "Again? Isn't that your father's project?" Maya's tone was carefully neutral, but I caught the concern in her eyes. "Dad's been having those dizzy spells. Doctor wants him to delegate more." I traced the rim of my mug. "And Tori volunteered to take lead. She asked for Nathan specifically to help." Maya reached across the table, squeezing my hand. "How are the wedding plans coming?" Slowly. The truth was, they weren't coming along at all. Every time I brought up venue options or dates, Nathan seemed distracted, distant. "We're thinking next fall, maybe." "A year away? You've been together 7 years, Liv." Maya gave me a searching look. "Everything good with you two?" "Of course," I said quickly, too quickly. "Just busy with work, the business. You know, how it is." But as we gathered our things to leave, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was shifting beneath my feet, like sand being pulled away by the tide, one grain at a time. I was putting the finishing touches on Nathan's anniversary gift when my father found me in the workshop. It was nearly midnight. The only sounds the scrape of fine grit sandpaper against wood and the occasional creak of the old building settling. "You've got a good eye," Dad said, startling me. He stood in the doorway, looking smaller somehow than the towering figure of my childhood. His silver hair caught the workshop lights, and the lines around his eyes seemed deeper than they had been even a month ago. "Thanks," I said, surprised by the compliment. "Just some shelving." Dad moved closer, running his fingers along the curves I'd carved into the walnut. "Not just shelving. This is craftsmanship. The way you've married function with these design elements." He traced the hidden latch for one of the secret compartments. Clever. Something warm unfurled in my chest. 7 simple words, "You've got a good eye," shouldn't have meant so much, but coming from Richard Martinez, they were rare gold. "It's for Nathan," I explained. "Our anniversary." Dad nodded, then surprised me by pulling up a stool. I saw, "Your designs for the Westerfield project." I stiffened. "I know you went with Tori's concept. It's fine. Her design will sell. Yours." He hesitated. "Yours showed more understanding of how people actually live in a space, how they move, through it, feel in it. I stared at him, speechless. After a lifetime of being the overlooked daughter, his words felt like a mirage, something that would disappear if examined too closely. "Why are you telling me this now?" Dad sighed, rubbing his temple. "The doctor ran some tests. Results weren't what we hoped. The sandpaper fell from my fingers." "What does that mean?" "Means I'm thinking about legacy, about what happens to all this." He gestured to the workshop around us. "When I'm gone." "You're not going anywhere," I said fiercely, fear clenching my throat. "Everyone goes somewhere, eventually." I placed something on the workbench between us. A small leather notebook worn at the edges. My first design book, from when I was younger than you are now. I reached for it with reverent hands. I'd heard about this notebook. Martinez Custom Furniture had begun with these sketches, these dreams committed to paper decades ago. But I'd never seen it, never held it. "Why are you showing me this?" "Because you understand what these are." Dad tapped the book. "Not just furniture, pieces of people's lives, their memories, their comfort." He stood, wincing slightly as he straightened his back. "Keep the book. Study it. There are things in there. Techniques I haven't shared. With anyone, not even Victoria." I clutched the notebook, unable to form words. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. "Don't tell your sister I gave you this. Not yet." Dad's expression was unreadable. "She doesn't see wood the way you do, the way I do." As he walked away, his shoulders slightly stooped, I called after him. "Dad, are you really sick?" He paused in the doorway. "Nothing for you to worry about tonight. Finish your project. It's beautiful work." After he left, I sat holding his notebook, a treasure I'd never expected to possess, while fear and confusion tangled in my chest. Why now? After years of favoring Victoria, why was he suddenly acknowledging my work? The answer came 3 weeks later when my father collapsed at a client meeting and was rushed to Cedar Grove Memorial Hospital. Stage 4 pancreatic cancer, already spread to his liver. Terminal. Our world shattered in an instant. "Of course I'll move the sustainability presentation," Nathan assured me, squeezing my hand as we sat in the hospital cafeteria. "Howard can handle the clients this week." I nodded, too numb to speak. The doctor's words kept replaying in my mind. Months, not years. Weeks, possibly. How could my strong, stubborn father be disappearing before our eyes? "I should get back up there," I said, gathering my cold coffee and untouched sandwich. "Mom needs someone to take notes while the doctors explain the treatment options." "I can come with you," Nathan offered, but I shook my head. Tori's already overwhelmed trying to handle the business calls and Mom. Too many people will just... I trailed off, not knowing how to finish. Nathan's phone buzzed. He glanced at it, then quickly put it away. "It's nothing, just work. You should check it. Could be important." "Nothing's more important than being here for you," he said firmly, but I saw the way his eyes flicked to his pocket when it buzzed again. "It's okay," I insisted. "Go, handle whatever it is. I need to be with my family anyway." Nathan hesitated, then kissed my forehead. "I'll come back tonight. We'll face this together, Liv. I promise." As I watched him hurry away, phone already pressed to his ear, I tried to ignore the hollow feeling in my chest. 7 years together, and for the first time, I wondered if I truly knew the man I was planning to marry. Upstairs, I found Tori, alone in Dad's room, speaking urgently into her phone while Dad slept. "No, we're not canceling the Sierra contract. I don't care what Howard thinks." "Yes, I understand the deadline, but..." She noticed me and lowered her voice. "I have to go. Just handle it." "Where's Mom?" I asked, setting my bag down. "Taking a call from Aunt Judith." Tori ran a hand through her perfectly styled hair. the only sign of her stress. She's falling apart, Liv. Someone needs to keep it together. And that someone is you? I couldn't keep the edge from my voice. Who else? She gestured to our sleeping father. The business can't just stop because Dad's sick. Clients are already nervous. If we show any weakness... Weakness? I interrupted. Dad is dying, Tori. This isn't about the business. Everything is about the business, she hissed, keeping her voice low. It's his legacy. Our legacy. The thing he spent his life building for us. For you, I corrected. He built it for you. I've always been an afterthought. Something flickered. Across Tori's face. Surprise. Maybe even hurt. That's not true. Isn't it? When was the last time he chose my design over yours? Or trusted me to handle an important client? That's because you don't fight for yourself, she said dismissively. You back down at the first sign of conflict. Business requires backbone, Liv. Before I could respond, Dad stirred, his eyes fluttering open. Instantly, both of us were at his side, argument forgotten. My girls, he murmured, his voice raspy. Both here. Always, Daddy, Tori said, taking his hand. We're handling everything. You just focus on getting stronger. Dad's gaze shifted to me, something important in his eyes. The notebook, Liv. Did you... I have it, I assured him, confused by his urgency. It's safe. He relaxed slightly. Good. That's good. His eyes drifted to Tori again. The business is fine, she interrupted smoothly. I've got everything under control. The Sierra deal is still moving forward, and Nathan's been incredibly helpful with the presentation. At Nathan's name, I felt a strange chill. The way she said it, Nathan's been incredibly helpful, carried an undercurrent I couldn't quite place. Dad closed his eyes again, exhaustion claiming him. In the quiet that followed, Tori's phone buzzed. I glimpsed the screen as she checked. It. Nathan with a heart emoji beside his name. My stomach dropped. A colleague wouldn't use a heart emoji. A future brother-in-law wouldn't use a heart emoji. What's going on between you and Nathan? The question left my mouth before I could... Stop it. Tori's expression shuddered. What are you talking about? The texts, the late meetings, the heart emoji beside his name in your phone. You're being paranoid, she scoffed, but wouldn't meet my eyes. We're working together on the Sierra project. Dad asked us to. Did Dad also ask you to put a heart by his name? She slipped her phone into her pocket. You're stressed. We all are. But don't start imagining things that aren't there. Aren't there? I pressed. Look me in the eye and tell me nothing's happening. For a moment, I thought she might confess. Then her chin lifted, defiance hardening her features. Nothing is happening, Liv. Nathan loves you. He proposed to you, remember? Maybe instead of accusing me, you should ask yourself why you're so insecure. Her words hit like a slap, designed to make me doubt myself. It was a tactic she'd used since we were children. Turn my questions back on me, make me the problem. You're right, I said, retreating. It's been a hard day. Relief crossed her face, so quickly I almost missed it. We're all on edge, but I'd never do that to you. You're my sister. I nodded, but as I settled into the chair by Dad's bed, the image of Nathan's name with that heart emoji burned in my mind. And beneath my hurt and confusion, something else stirred. A cold, clear certainty that my sister was lying to my face. 2 days later, I found myself alone in Dad's workshop well after midnight. Sleep had become impossible. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Dad's pale face against the hospital pillows, or imagined Nathan and Tori together when I wasn't around. I needed to work, to feel the grain of wood beneath my fingers, to lose myself in the repetitive motion of sanding and finishing. Nathan's shelves were complete, wrapped and waiting in the corner, but I couldn't bring myself to give them to him. Not until I knew for certain where we stood. Instead, I opened Dad's leather notebook, paging through sketches and notes written in his precise handwriting. Near the back, I found designs I'd never seen before. Innovative joinery techniques, distinctive curves that had become Martinez, signatures. And tucked between the pages, a folded sheet of paper that looked newer than the rest. My hands trembled as I unfolded it. A letter, dated just 3 weeks ago. My dear Olivia, if you're reading this, I've either shared my notebook with you or I'm gone. Either way, there are truths you deserve to know. Your sister has always commanded attention, while you've quietly mastered our craft. I failed you by not recognizing your talent sooner, by allowing Victoria's louder voice to drown out your quieter wisdom. I've made changes to my will. Victoria believes she'll inherit control of Martinez Custom Furniture. She won't. The business has always been about creating beauty that lasts, not chasing trends. You understand this in a way she never has. The notebook contains all my knowledge, but you already possess the gift that can't be taught, the ability to see the soul in the wood. Trust that gift. Trust yourself. With love and regret for lost time, Dad. I read the letter 3 times, tears blurring the words. All these years, I'd believed he didn't see me, didn't value my work. And now, when it was almost too late, I learned the truth. A noise at the door made me look up. Nathan stood there, his face half in shadow. Liv? Maya said you might be here. He stepped into the workshop. It's 3 a.m. I quickly folded the letter, slipping it back into the notebook. Couldn't sleep. Me neither. He moved closer, tentative. How's your dad? The same. Doctors say it won't be long. My voice sounded hollow even to my own ears. Nathan nodded, fidgeting with a scrap of sandpaper from the workbench. I've been calling you. I know. You haven't answered. I met his eyes. I've been busy, with Dad, the hospital. And avoiding me, he added quietly. I said nothing, which was answer enough. Liv, whatever you're thinking. I saw the texts, I cut in. On Tori's phone, your name, the heart emoji. Nathan paled, visibly, even in the dim workshop lighting. I can explain. Can you? I stood up, putting distance between us. Because it looks like my sister and my fiancé are having an affair while my father is dying. It's not, he started. Then, stopped. It's complicated. Actually, it's very simple, I said, surprising myself with how calm I sounded. Are you sleeping with my sister? His silence was damning. How long? Nathan looked away. 3 months. 3 months. My mind raced backward. 3 months ago was the Sierra Hotel's project kickoff. 3 months ago, Tori had specifically requested Nathan's help. 3 months ago, he'd started canceling our dinner plans. Were you ever going to tell me? Or just keep stringing me along until… What? Until you and Tori decided it was time to break the news? I never meant to hurt you, he said, the most predictable, pathetic response possible. Yet here we are. I gestured to the space between us. 7 years together, Nathan. 7 years. And you threw it away for what? The thrill of sneaking. Around with my sister? It just happened, he said weakly. We were working late and… Stop. I held up my hand. I don't want details. I want you to leave. Liv, please. The engagement is off, I said, twisting the vintage ring from my finger. I placed it on the workbench between us. Tell Tori congratulations. You deserve each other. Nathan made no move to take the ring. What about your dad? He's dying, Liv. Do you really want to add this drama right now? The calculated cruelty of using my father's illness to manipulate me stole my breath. Get out. This time he listened, backing towards the door. "I'm sorry. I really am." After he left, I sank to the workshop floor, my father's notebook clutched to my chest, and finally let myself cry. For Dad, for the 7 wasted years, for the betrayal that cut deeper than I could have imagined. But beneath the tears, a seed of resolve took root. Dad had seen something in me that others had missed. He'd trusted me with his legacy. And I wouldn't let Tori take that from me too. My father died on a Tuesday morning, slipping away peacefully, with Mom holding one hand and me the other. Tori arrived 10 minutes too late, bursting into the hospital room in designer heels and a tailored black dress, as if she'd dressed for his death before it happened. "No," she gasped, seeing our tear-streaked faces. "I was just on a coffee run. He can't be—" "He's gone," Mom said, her voice breaking. "Your father's gone." I watched my sister crumple into a chair, genuine grief etching her perfect features. Despite everything, Nathan, her lies, years of competition, in that moment, we were just 2 daughters who had lost their father. When she reached for my hand across Dad's body, I let her take it. We stayed that way for a long time, connected by loss and shared blood, if nothing else. The connection didn't last. By evening, Tori had shifted into business mode, making funeral arrangements, notifying clients, presenting herself as the natural heir to Dad's legacy. I noticed she avoided being alone with me, always keeping Mom or a staff member between us. Nathan was conspicuously absent from the funeral preparations. When Mom asked about him, I simply said, "We broke up. It's over." She was too consumed by her own grief to question it, merely patting my hand and murmuring, "I'm sorry, sweetheart. Everything happens at once sometimes." If only she knew. The funeral was held at Cedar Grove's historic stone church, filled beyond capacity with family, friends, clients, and community members whose lives Dad had touched. I sat between Mom and Tori in the front pew, acutely aware of Nathan slipping into a seat near the back just as the service began. I'd prepared myself for his presence, but nothing could have prepared me for what happened at the graveside. As the pastor spoke final words over Dad's casket, I felt Tori tense beside me. Following her gaze, I saw Nathan approaching, a somber expression on his face. He came to stand beside Tori. Not me, not my mother, but my sister. And with everyone watching, she reached for his hand. He took it, their fingers intertwining in a gesture so intimate, so public, it couldn't be mistaken for mere comfort between friends. A collective ripple of shock passed through the gathering. 7 years Nathan had been by my side at family events. 7 years he'd been introduced as my boyfriend, then fiancé. And now, at my father's funeral, he and my sister were declaring themselves a couple. Mom's confused whisper reached me. "Olivia? What's happening?" I couldn't answer. The betrayal was complete, deliberate, and cruel beyond measure. To choose this moment, my father's funeral, to flaunt their relationship was a calculated move designed to humiliate me when I was most vulnerable. Maya appeared at my side, slipping her arm through mine. "Don't give them the satisfaction," she whispered fiercely. "Hold your head high." Somehow, I made it through the rest of the service. As we walked back to the waiting cars, I heard the murmurs, saw the sideways glances. By nightfall, all of Cedar Grove would know Victoria Martinez had stolen her sister's fiancé and revealed it at their father's funeral. But the day's revelations weren't over yet. 3 hours later, immediate family and close business associates gathered in the wood-paneled conference room of Douglas Turner's law office for the reading of the will. Nathan sat beside Tori, their united front a silent declaration of new alliances. "Before we begin," Mr. Turner said, adjusting his glasses, "Richard asked me to share something with all of you." He placed a small recorder on the table and pressed play. Dad's voice filled the room, weaker than in life, but still commanding. If you're hearing this, I've moved on to whatever comes next. Don't waste time grieving too hard. I've had a good life, built something worthwhile, loved a good woman, and raised 2 daughters who, despite their differences, are both extraordinary in their own ways. Victoria, my firstborn, you have my ambition, my drive. You've never been afraid to reach for what you want, even when perhaps you should be. Your mother and I gave you every advantage, and you've used them well, if not always wisely. Olivia, my quiet one, you have my hands, my eye for beauty in simple things. You've worked in the shadow of your sister too long, doubting your own considerable gifts. The fault for that is partly mine. I built Martinez Custom Furniture from nothing but passion and stubborn determination. What began as my dream grew into our family's legacy, and now I must ensure that legacy continues in the right hands. Eleanor, my love, you will, of course, be provided for completely. But as for the business and what remains... The recording paused and Mr. Turner cleared his throat. Mr. Martinez left specific instructions about the division of his estate. He opened a folder and began to read. To my wife, Eleanor Martinez, I leave our family home and investments totaling $2 million to provide for her comfort for the remainder of her life. To my daughter, Victoria Martinez, I leave a cash bequest of $500,000. The remaining assets, including complete ownership and control of Martinez Custom Furniture, all associated intellectual property, designs, and client relationships, I leave to my daughter, Olivia Martinez, who possesses the true heart of a craftsman. The silence that followed was absolute. Then Tori's voice, strangled with shock. That's impossible. Mr. Turner continued as if she hadn't spoken. Mr. Martinez added a personal note here. Olivia, in my workshop, beneath the 3rd floorboard. From the eastern wall, you'll find a wooden box containing items I've saved for you. The notebook was just the beginning. The room erupted, Tori on her feet, demanding to see the will. Nathan pale and silent beside her. Mom crying softly. Howard Winters nodding as if he'd expected nothing less. Through it all, I sat perfectly. Still, my father's last gift washing over me. Not just the business or the money, though both were substantial, but the recognition. The public acknowledgement that he had seen me, valued me, chosen me to carry forward what mattered most to him. As the chaos swirled, I caught Nathan's eye across the table. For the first time since discovering his betrayal, I felt no pain looking at him. Whatever we'd had was gone, burned away by his choices and my father's unexpected faith in me. This will be contested, Tori was saying, voice shaking. Dad wasn't in his right mind. The cancer medications... Your father made these changes 3 months ago, Mr. Turner interrupted calmly. Before his diagnosis, his doctor has provided written testimony to his sound state of mind. 3 months ago, the same time Nathan and Tori's affair began. Had Dad somehow known? Had he seen something in his favored daughter that finally opened his eyes? I think, I said, standing slowly, we've all had enough revelations for one day. Mr. Turner, thank you for your time. Mom, would you like me to drive you home? Tori blocked my path to the door. You can't possibly run the business. You've never even managed a project on your own. I met her gaze steadily. Dad disagreed. And it's my company now. Liv. Nathan stepped forward, his expression conciliatory. Maybe we should all take some time to process this. I'm sure we can work something out that benefits everyone. The audacity to betray me, humiliate me at my father's funeral, and then position himself as a reasonable mediator was breathtaking. There's nothing to work out, I said, loud enough for everyone to hear. Victoria gets her money. I get the business. And you, Nathan, get exactly what you chose. A woman who values ambition over loyalty and image over substance. I wish you both every happiness you deserve." Without waiting for a response, I took my mother's arm and led her from the room, Maya following close behind. Outside, the late afternoon sun cast long shadows across the law office steps. "He left it all to you," Mom murmured, sounding dazed. "Richard actually did it." "Did what?" "Chose you." She squeezed my hand. "He was planning to tell you himself, before he got sick. He said it was time to right an old wrong." In the car, as Maya drove us home, I looked back at the law office where Tori and Nathan still remained. My sister had taken what she thought I valued most, Nathan. But my father had given me what truly mattered: his trust, his legacy, and finally, the key to my own future. That night, I went to the workshop alone and found the loose floorboard my father had mentioned. Beneath it, exactly as he'd described, was a wooden box inlaid with mother of pearl. Inside, the deed to a small cabin on the coast he'd never mentioned, owning a vintage watch that had belonged to his father and a flash drive labeled, "For Olivia, designs never shared." And beneath it all, a final note. "Your sister sees furniture as a product. You see it as part of people's stories. That's why the business must be yours. Build something beautiful, Liv. Something that lasts." As I held my inheritance in my hands, I thought about legacy and loss, betrayal and unexpected gifts. Tomorrow would bring challenges. Tori wouldn't surrender easily. The business needed leadership. Clients would have questions. But tonight, in the workshop where my father had taught me to love the soul of wood, I knew with sudden clarity that the inheritance split that had shocked everyone at the funeral wasn't really about money or even the business. It was about recognition. About being seen. For the first time in my life, I'd been seen. The morning after the will reading, I woke to 17 missed calls, 12 from Tori, 3 from Nathan, and 2 from Howard Winters, Dad's business partner. I ignored them all, making coffee in the quiet kitchen of my apartment while watching dawn break over Cedar Grove's harbor. The calm before the storm. Maya arrived with bagels and determination. "Game plan," she announced, spreading cream cheese with surgical precision. "You need to get to the workshop before Tori does. Establish presence. Howard called me. He's on your side, by the way, and he says some of the craftsmen are nervous about the transition." I sipped my coffee, Dad's wooden box sitting open on the table between us. "They're worried the business will fail under my leadership." "They're worried about their jobs," Maya corrected. Tori's been telling people for years she'd streamline operations when she took over. Everyone knows what that means. "Layoffs," I murmured, running my fingers over my grandfather's pocket watch. The weight of responsibility settled on my shoulders, not just for the business, but for the people who'd worked alongside my father for decades, people who might not believe in me yet. "Exactly." Maya pushed a bagel toward me. "Eat, then shower. We're going to Martinez Custom Furniture, and you're going to look every inch the boss." An hour later, I stood before the mirror, barely recognizing myself. Gone were my usual jeans and oversized sweater, replaced by tailored black pants and a deep blue blouse that made my eyes look more purposeful than frightened. Maya had twisted my chestnut hair into a sleek knot at the nape of my neck. "Not bad," she assessed. "Now remember, you don't need to justify your presence or apologize for existing. This is yours. Act like it." I swallowed hard. "What if I can't?" "Then fake it," she said simply. "Your father believed you could run this company. Start by believing it too." The Martinez Custom Furniture workshop occupied a renovated warehouse on Cedar Grove's waterfront, its exterior weathered brick belying the precision craftsmanship that occurred inside. When I pulled into the parking lot at 7:30 a.m., a familiar silver BMW already gleamed in Dad's my reserved space. Tori had arrived first. Maya squeezed my arm. Remember, your company, your rules. Inside, the smell of wood and varnish greeted me, momentarily steadying my nerves. This, at least, was familiar territory. The soft murmur of voices led us to the main office, where Tori stood addressing a gathered circle of employees, the master craftsmen, the finish specialists, the design team, and the office staff who kept everything running. "Unfortunate situation," she was saying, her voice carrying that perfect blend of authority and compassion she'd perfected over the years. "But I want to assure all of you that despite yesterday's confusion, nothing is changing. Martinez Custom Furniture will continue under stable leadership." "Mine," I said clearly, stepping into the room. 20 pairs of eyes swiveled toward me. Tori's perfect composure faltered for just a moment before her professional mask slipped back into place. "Olivia, I was just explaining to everyone that while Dad's will contained some unexpected provisions, we'll be filing to contest it. In the meantime—" "There's nothing to contest," I interrupted, my voice steadier than I felt. "Mr. Turner made the legal situation very clear yesterday. Martinez Custom Furniture belongs to me now." Bernard, our head craftsman who'd worked with Dad for over 30 years, cleared his throat. "Miss Liv, we don't mean any disrespect, but this is all very sudden. None of us were expecting—" "Me," I finished for him. "I know, I wasn't expecting it either, Bernard, but my father made his choice and I intend to honor it." Tori laughed, the sound brittle. "Honor it? Liv, you've never managed a project from concept to completion. You've never dealt with suppliers or negotiated contracts. You work part-time in admin at a community college." The old me would have shrunk under her criticism, accepted the implied inadequacy. But something had changed, whether it was Dad's letter, or the betrayal that had hardened something inside me, or simply the knowledge that this was my one chance to prove myself. "You're right," I acknowledged, earning surprise from everyone, including Tori. "I haven't managed full projects, but I've been working in this shop since I was 12. I understand the materials, the craft, the philosophy behind every piece we create. Dad didn't build this company on management skills. He built it on understanding wood and design." I moved to the large work table at the center of the room, placing my palm flat against its surface. This table was the first major piece Dad ever sold. American black walnut, harvested from a storm-felled tree in Millfield County. The client was Judge Harrison, who wanted a table that would last generations. I traced my fingers along a nearly invisible seam. The judge had limited space, so Dad designed it with these butterfly expansion joints that allow it to double in size without compromising structural integrity. Bernard's weathered face softened. "You remember that story?" "I remember all his stories." I looked around the room, meeting each person's gaze. "I know I have a lot to learn about running a business, but I also know Dad's vision. Furniture that becomes part of a family's story. Pieces built with integrity to last lifetimes. That vision won't change under my leadership." Howard Winters, who had slipped in during my speech, nodded almost imperceptibly. Tori noticed too, her eyes narrowing at this small betrayal from Dad's longtime business partner. "Very touching," she said, crossing her arms. "But sentiment doesn't pay salaries or secure contracts. The Sierra Hotels deal is hanging by a thread, and they've specifically requested me as their point of contact." "Actually," Howard interjected, "they requested Richard, and in his absence, they've agreed to work with whoever leads Martinez Custom Furniture." He turned to me. "We have a meeting with them tomorrow at 10 a.m. I'll brief you on the details." Tori's face flushed with anger. "This is ridiculous. I've been working on Sierra for months. Nathan and I have the entire presentation prepared." At Nathan's name, a ripple of discomfort passed through the room. Everyone had witnessed their display at the funeral yesterday. Everyone knew what it meant. "I'll review your work on the project," I said. grateful that my voice didn't betray the twist of pain hearing his name still caused. The presentation can proceed as planned with adjustments as needed. Adjustments? Tori's voice rose. You're going to change my designs the day before the biggest contract this company has ever seen? Not necessarily, I replied, maintaining my calm. But I need to understand every aspect of what we're proposing before I present it. That's not unreasonable. Bernard cleared his throat again. If I might suggest, Miss Victoria has been leading this project, and Miss Liv brings a fresh perspective. Perhaps a collaboration? The irony wasn't lost on anyone. Collaborate with the sister who had betrayed me in the most personal way possible? But looking at the anxious faces around me, I understood what Bernard was really saying. Don't let personal drama endanger our livelihoods. I'm willing to review the Sierra proposal together, I conceded. But as owner and CEO of Martinez Custom Furniture, final decisions are mine. Tori's smile was all teeth and no warmth. How generous. I'll have Nathan bring over all our materials this afternoon. The mention was deliberate, a reminder of her victory, her power to still hurt me. I refused to flinch. That won't be necessary. Email me the files. I'll meet with you. Alone. At 2. I turned to address the room again. I know change is unsettling, but I promise you this. Every person in this room is valued. There will be no layoffs, no streamlining that costs jobs. Martinez Custom Furniture has always been about quality over quantity, craftsmanship over mass production. That won't change under my leadership. The relief on several faces confirmed Maya's earlier warning about Tori's plans. Even Howard looked surprised, then approving. Now, I suggest we all get back to work. We have clients counting on us. I nodded to Bernard. I'd like a tour of all current projects, please. I need to be up to speed on everything. As the group dispersed, Tori grabbed my arm, pulling me toward my office. What the hell? Do you think you're doing? I removed her hand from my arm. Taking control of my company. This isn't over, Liv, she hissed. You may have Dad's will on your side for now, but I have 7 years of client relationships. People in this industry know me, trust me. They've never even heard of you. They'll hear of me now, I said, simply. Something shifted in her expression, calculation replacing anger. Let's be practical. You don't really want to run a business. You like designing, creating. Why not sell me your shares? I'll give you a fair price, more than fair. You could start your own small studio, do the artistic work you love without all this responsibility. For a moment, the offer was tempting. Running Martinez Custom Furniture would mean long hours, difficult decisions, a steep learning curve. But then I remembered Dad's letter. You understand this in a way she never has. No deal, I said. This is mine now, Tori. You should focus on planning your future with Nathan. I hear he likes women with ambition. Her eyes widened at the direct hit. You have no idea what you're doing. Maybe not, I admitted, but I'm going to learn. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have a business to run. I walked past her into the office that still held Dad's presence so strongly. His design books lining the shelves, the faint scent of his cedar aftershave, the worn leather chair where he'd sketched countless designs. I sat behind his massive desk, running my hands over the smooth surface he'd crafted himself decades ago. Through the glass walls, I watched Tori storm through the workshop, employees carefully avoiding her path. Then Maya appeared in the doorway, giving me a thumbs up. Not bad for your first 15 minutes as CEO, she said, closing the door behind her. You okay? I let out a shaky breath I hadn't realized I was holding. Not remotely, but I think I faked it convincingly. She grinned. Told you so. Now want to see what's on that flash drive your dad left you? By afternoon, I'd reviewed every current project, spoken with each team member individually, and begun to grasp the scope of what I'd inherited. Dad had built a reputation for excellence that commanded premium prices, but with that came enormous pressure to deliver perfection every time. The Sierra Hotel's contract represented a significant departure from our typical clients. A boutique hotel chain wanted complete furnishings for their new Cedar Grove property, everything from lobby statement pieces to guest room furniture. It was massive in scale, ambitious in timeline, and potentially transformative for the business. At precisely 2 o'clock, Tori arrived for our meeting, digital portfolio in hand. Her crisp white pantsuit and perfect makeup presented a stark contrast to my more casual attire. I'd abandoned Maya's formal styling for rolled sleeves and comfortable shoes after spending the morning touring the production floor. "You look like a factory worker," she commented as I led her into the conference room. "I am a factory worker," I replied, "along with being the owner, designer, and now CEO. "About that," she said, opening her laptop. "My lawyer thinks we have a strong case to contest the will. Dad's judgment was clearly compromised. The timing of these changes were made before his diagnosis," I reminded her. "But we're not here to discuss the will. Show me the Sierra proposal." With obvious reluctance, Tori launched her presentation. I had to admit, her work was impressive, meticulously researched, beautifully rendered, with a cohesive vision that married contemporary luxury with subtle nautical influences appropriate for a coastal property. "The lobby centerpiece is a statement reception desk," she explained, pulling up a 3D rendering. "Salvaged teak from a decommissioned yacht, with brass inlays that reference nautical instruments. Behind it, a feature wall of carved panels depicting abstracted wave patterns." I studied the design. It was beautiful, marketable, exactly what a luxury hotel would want. And yet, "It's not us," I said finally. Tori's head snapped up. "Excuse me? It's gorgeous work. It would photograph beautifully for their website and marketing materials. But it's not Martinez. It could be any high-end furniture design from any major studio." "That's the point," she said slowly, as if explaining to a child. "We're positioning ourselves to compete with the major studios, to scale beyond custom pieces for wealthy individuals." I shook my head. "Dad built this company on creating furniture with soul, pieces that tell a story and become part of a family's history. This design, it's all surface, no depth. It's a hotel live. They don't want soul, they want style, consistency, brand identity. Even hotels have stories," I insisted, remembering something Dad had taught me. "The best ones make guests feel like they're part of something authentic, not just sleeping in another interchangeable luxury box." Tori's frustration was palpable. "We've spent months on this. Nathan and I have poured everything into making this perfect. You can't just throw it away because it doesn't meet your arbitrary standard of soul." I flinched at Nathan's name but pressed on. "I'm not throwing it away. The overall concept works, but we need to bring more Martinez identity to it." I opened Dad's flash drive, pulling up the designs I'd discovered that morning, innovative wood-bending techniques he'd been developing, ways to reveal the natural grain and character of the wood while creating contemporary forms. "Look at this," I said, showing her a particular joint system. "We could incorporate these elements into your design. Keep the luxury aesthetic, but add unexpected details that showcase true craftsmanship. Features guests might not notice at first, but would discover over time." For a moment, professional curiosity overcame her animosity. Tori leaned forward, studying the designs. "Dad never showed me these." "He was saving them," I said softly, "for the right project." Something flickered across her face. Hurt, perhaps, at this further evidence of Dad's shifting allegiance. Then her expression hardened again. "Fine. Make your adjustments. But if we lose this contract because you're chasing some idealistic notion of furniture with soul, the responsibility is entirely yours." Agreed, I said. Now, about tomorrow's presentation? I'm doing it, Tori interrupted. I've spent months building rapport with their team. They expect me. I considered arguing, but realized she was right. Disrupting the client relationship now could jeopardize everything. Besides, I needed time to integrate my ideas into her presentation. All right, I conceded. You'll lead the presentation, but I'll attend as CEO, and the design modifications are non-negotiable. She gathered her materials, clearly surprised by my compromise. I'll need your changes by 8 a.m. to incorporate them. You'll have them by midnight. After she left, I texted Maya to cancel our dinner plans, ordered takeout to the office, and settled in for a long night of design work. This was my chance. To prove, to Tori, to the employees, to myself, that Dad had made the right choice. Hours into detailed revisions, the office door opened, startling me. Nathan stood there, hesitant, holding a cardboard tray with 2 coffee cups. You missed dinner, he said, setting one cup on the desk. I thought you might need caffeine. I stared at him, this man I'd planned to marry, now a stranger wearing a familiar face. What are you doing here? Tori told me about the design. Changes. I thought I might help. He gestured to the computer. I know how she thinks. What she'll fight for versus what she'll compromise on. And you thought I'd want your help? I couldn't keep the incredulity from my voice. He had the grace to look ashamed. I know it's awkward. Awkward? I echoed. Nathan, you cheated. On me with my sister after 7 years together. Humiliated me at my father's funeral. And now you think we can work together like nothing happened? Not like nothing happened, he clarified, but professionally, for the good of the company. I laughed, the sound brittle even to my own ears. Get out. Liv, please. I know I hurt you. You have no idea what you did to me, I said quietly. 7 years, Nathan. 7 years of my life invested in someone who threw it all away for what? A fling with my sister? Was she worth it? His silence told me everything. That's what I thought, I said, turning back to my computer. Please, leave. It wasn't just a fling, he said finally. I love her, Liv. The words hit like a physical blow. Love, I repeated. You love the woman who spent her entire life trying to outshine me, control me, take what's mine. She's not who you think she is, he insisted. There are sides to Tori you've never seen. Clearly, I replied dryly. Look, I don't care what you think you feel for my sister. That's your business now. But don't come in here pretending to help me when we both know where your loyalty lies. He ran a hand through his hair, a gesture so familiar it ached. The Sierra contract is important to everyone who works here, which is why I'm staying up all night to make sure we get it right, I said pointedly. Goodbye, Nathan. After he left, I sat motionless, trying to process the surreal encounter. 7 years together, and he could walk in with coffee like we were casual acquaintances. 7 years, and he could say I love her to my face. I reached for my phone, needing Maya's steadying voice, then stopped myself. This was my company now, my responsibility. I couldn't fall apart over Nathan every time he appeared. Instead, I opened Dad's notebook, finding the letter he'd left, me. Build something beautiful, Liv. Something that lasts. With renewed determination, I returned to the designs, working until dawn transformed the workshop windows from black to gray to the soft gold of early morning. By 7, I had completed renderings that preserved Tori's luxury aesthetic while incorporating Dad's innovative techniques and my own sense of narrative into each piece. I emailed the files to Tori, then drove home to shower and change before the presentation. When I returned to the office at 9:30, the conference room was already prepared, samples arranged, digital portfolio loaded, coffee and pastries set out for the clients. Tori stood before the main screen, reviewing the final Presentation. She'd incorporated my changes seamlessly, I noted with surprise. Our designs now told a story. The hotel as a maritime journey, each area flowing into the next with purpose and meaning. You did good work, she admitted grudgingly. The integrated reading lights and the headboards. That was clever. Coming. From Tori, this qualified as effusive praise. Thanks. Your original concept was strong. I just added details. Important details, she conceded. The hidden compartments in the desks for tech cables. That's exactly the kind of thoughtful touch Sierra is looking for. For a moment, we were just two designers appreciating each other's work, the personal betrayal temporarily set aside in service to the business. Then Howard appeared at the door. They're here. Everyone ready? Tori smoothed her already perfect hair. Ready. I took a deep breath, adjusting the blazer Maya had insisted I wear. Let's do this. The Sierra Hotels team consisted of 5 people, their CEO, head of operations, brand director, and 2 designers. Tori greeted them with professional warmth, introducing me as our CEO and head of design innovation. I noted the surprise on their faces. They'd clearly expected to work with Victoria Martinez, the name they knew. But as the presentation unfolded, their skepticism transformed into genuine interest. Tori was flawless, articulate, knowledgeable, passionate about the designs. I contributed details about construction methods and material sourcing, emphasizing the narrative elements that would make their hotel unique. By the time we revealed the final renderings of the guest rooms, featuring beds with integrated hidden storage inspired by ship's cabins and nightstands that incorporated subtle lighting designed to evoke dawn over water, the Sierra team was visibly impressed. This exceeds our expectations, their CEO said, studying the samples we'd prepared. The storytelling element is exactly what we've been seeking. Our guests don't just want luxury, they want an experience they can't get anywhere else. Their brand director nodded. The way you've incorporated nautical elements without resorting to cliches, it's sophisticated, subtle. Our guests will discover new details with each stay. Tori smiled, accepting the praise graciously. That's the Martinez philosophy. Furniture should reveal itself over time, becoming more meaningful with use. I glanced at her, surprised to hear her repeat one of Dad's core beliefs. One she'd often dismissed as unmarketable sentimentality. Perhaps she'd been listening all these years after all. The meeting concluded with handshakes all around and a request for detailed quotes by the end of the week. As Howard escorted the clients out, Tori turned to me, a genuine smile illuminating her face. We nailed it, she said, her competitive nature momentarily overcome by professional satisfaction. We did, I agreed. Your presentation was perfect. Your design additions made the difference, she admitted. They loved the narrative approach. For a fleeting moment, I glimpsed what might have been possible between us in another life. Professional respect, creative collaboration, sisters, working together instead of against each other. Then reality crashed back as Nathan appeared in the doorway, his expression eager. How did it go? Tori's face lit up at the sight of him. We killed it. They practically signed on the spot. He crossed the room to embrace her, pressing a kiss to her temple. I knew you would. It was a small gesture, casual even, but seeing it twisted something inside me. Not jealousy exactly. That surprised me most, but a sharp pang of loss for what I'd thought we had. I should get to work on those quotes, I said, edging toward the door. Tori turned, still wrapped in Nathan's arms. Liv, wait. We should celebrate, the 3 of us. Clear the air. The suggestion was so absurd I almost laughed. I don't think so. This is ridiculous, she sighed. We can't avoid each other forever. We live in the same town, work for the same company. You work for me, I corrected. And while I'm willing to collaborate professionally when necessary, I have no interest in pretending we're one big, happy family. Nathan frowned. Liv, be reasonable. What happened between Tori and me isn't something I need to hear about, discuss, or understand. I finished for him. Congratulations on the presentation, Victoria. The design team will need direction on next steps for Sierra. I suggest you focus on that. I left them standing there, retreating to Dad's office and closing the door. Through the glass, I watched them talking, heads bent close together, and felt a strange detachment, as if watching characters in a movie rather than the two people who had hurt me most. My phone buzzed with a text from Maya. Sierra update? I typed back. We got it. Celebrating with spreadsheets and client quotes. Dinner later? Her response came quickly. Your place, 7 p.m. I'll bring wine and Westridge Fellowship application updates. Time to plan your future beyond Cedar Grove. I smiled at the reminder. In all the chaos, I'd nearly forgotten about the Seattle Design Fellowship, my secret escape plan, now complicated by my inheritance. Could I really leave Cedar Grove? Leave the business Dad had entrusted to me? To pursue my own dreams? As if summoned by my thoughts, Howard appeared at my door, knocking gently before entering. Impressive work with Sierra, he said, settling into the chair across from me. Your father would have been proud of both you and Victoria today. Thank you, I said, warmed by his approval. Howard had been Dad's closest friend and confidant for decades. I'm not here just to congratulate you, though. He placed a folder on the desk between us. Richard asked me to give you this after the will was settled. Said you'd need it sooner rather than later. I opened the folder to find detailed documentation of the business finances, organizational structure, and, most surprisingly, a succession plan written in Dad's precise handwriting. He knew Tori wouldn't accept the decision easily, Howard explained. This outlines his reasoning, his vision for the company's future, and his suggestions for managing the transition, including, he tapped a particular paragraph, how to handle your sister. I scanned the document, my eyes widening. At Dad's candid assessment, Victoria has always seen Martinez Custom Furniture as a platform for her ambitions rather than a calling. She'll fight for control, possibly through legal channels. Offer her the position of creative director with appropriate compensation and autonomy. Her talent is genuine and valuable, but her vision must be guided by someone who understands the soul of what we create. He thought of everything, I murmured. Howard nodded. Richard was preparing for this transition for months. He saw in you what the rest of us are just beginning to recognize. Someone who can preserve the Martinez legacy while evolving it for the future. But I don't have the experience. Experience can be gained, he interrupted gently. Understanding can't be taught. You understand what makes Martinez special in a way Victoria never has. Dad's words echoed in Howard's, making me wonder how many conversations they'd had about this succession plan. How long had Dad been watching, evaluating, preparing to entrust his life's work to his overlooked younger daughter? There's one more thing you should know, Howard said, his expression grave. Victoria has approached several key clients, suggesting she might start her own design firm. She's testing the waters, seeing who might follow her if she leaves. The betrayal stung, though it shouldn't have surprised me. And? Mixed responses. Some are loyal to the Martinez name. Others are drawn to her more contemporary aesthetic. He shrugged. It's a legitimate business strategy, but you should be prepared. I thought of the Sierra presentation, how seamlessly our different strengths had complemented each other when we weren't competing. What if she didn't have to leave? What if Dad was right, and there's a place for both of us here? Howard smiled. That would be ideal, but it would require Victoria to accept your leadership, and Nathan would complicate everything, I finished. I know. After Howard left, I returned to Dad's succession plan, studying his careful notes about the business he'd built and the daughter he'd finally recognized. Between its lines, I read his regret for years of overlooking my contributions, his belated acknowledgement of my value. Outside my office, the workshop hummed with activity, the sounds of saws and sanders, the murmur of craftsmen consulting on joints and finishes, the rhythmic tapping of Bernard's mallet as he fitted pieces together. This was my inheritance, not just a business, but a community, a tradition, a way of seeing the world through the grain of wood and the stories it could tell. Could I share it with the sister who had betrayed me? Could I find a place for Tori's ambition within my vision? Or would her presence, and Nathan's, be a constant reminder of everything I'd lost? I had no answers yet, only questions and the weight of responsibility Dad had placed on my shoulders. But as I traced my fingers over his familiar handwriting, I felt a spark of determination. Martinez Custom Furniture was mine now, my legacy to protect, my vision to realize. Whatever came next, I would face it on my own terms. The Sierra Hotel's contract was officially signed on a rainy Thursday afternoon, 3 weeks after I assumed control of Martinez Custom Furniture. Howard uncorked a bottle of champagne in the conference room as the Sierra representatives shook hands with our team, their excited voices filling the space with plans and possibilities. "To new beginnings," Howard said, raising his glass, "and to the next chapter of Martinez excellence." Tori stood beside me, her smile genuine despite the tension that still hummed between us. She'd worked tirelessly on the project since our initial presentation, channeling her frustration with the inheritance situation into meticulous planning and inspired design work. "Your father would be proud," Sierra's CEO told us, clinking his glass against mine. "This collaboration honors his legacy while pushing boundaries. Exactly what we wanted." After the clients left, I found myself alone in the conference room, with Tori, both of us gathering presentation materials in awkward silence. "We make a good team," I said finally, "when we're not trying to sabotage each other." She looked up, surprise flickering across her face. "Is that what you think I'm doing? Sabotaging you?" "Aren't you? Howard told me you've been approaching clients about starting your own firm." Tori set down the portfolio she was holding. "I'm exploring options. That's just business sense." "It feels personal," I countered. "Like you're punishing me for an inheritance I didn't ask for." "Didn't you?" Her voice sharpened. "You've been Dad's secret favorite for months. All those late nights in the workshop, the design conversations I wasn't invited to join. You may not have asked for the business directly, but you were certainly cultivating his approval." The accusation stung, partly because there was a grain of truth to it. Those quiet hours with Dad in the workshop had been precious to me, moments of connection after years of feeling overlooked. I wasn't plotting to take your inheritance, Tori. I was just being seen. Finally. I met her gaze directly. "But you were plotting to take something of mine, weren't you?" She had the decency to look away. "Nathan and I didn't plan for it to happen. But you didn't stop it either." I gathered the last of my papers, needing to escape this conversation before old wounds reopened. "Look, I'm not interested in rehashing the personal stuff. I want to talk about your role here." "My role?" She raised an eyebrow, skeptical. "Creative director," I said. "Full autonomy over the design department, market competitive salary, profit sharing. But I remain CEO, with final authority on business decisions." Tori stared at me, clearly caught off guard. "You're offering me a job? In Dad's company? Your company?" "Our company," I corrected. "Dad built it for both of us, even if he changed his mind about who should lead it. You're a brilliant designer." "Tori." The Sierra project proved we're stronger together than apart. "And what about Nathan?" she asked, watching my face carefully. "He's been our sustainability consultant for years. Would he still have a place here?" The question made my stomach twist, but I'd anticipated it. If he maintains professional boundaries and reports to Howard rather than either of us, yes. His expertise is valuable to the company. I extended my hand, a business-like gesture to formalize the offer. Partners? Not equals in ownership, but equals in vision? Tori hesitated, studying my face as if searching for a trap. Then, slowly, she reached out and shook my hand. I'll need the offer in writing, with specific terms about my creative control. Of course, I agreed, releasing her hand. Howard can draw up the paperwork by tomorrow. And she nodded, gathering her things to leave, then paused at the door. Why are you doing this, Liv? After everything that happened with Nathan, with the will, you could have pushed me out completely. I considered the question, searching for honesty rather than the easy answer. Because Dad was right about me understanding the soul of Martinez Furniture, and part of that soul is family. You're still my sister, Tori. That hasn't changed, even if everything else has. Something flickered across her face, regret perhaps, or confusion. I don't understand you sometimes. You never really tried to, I replied without heat. Maybe now's a good time to start. After she left, I texted Maya, just offered Tori creative director position. Either brilliant strategy or terrible mistake. Dinner consultation needed. Her reply came instantly. On my way with Thai food and brutal honesty. Wine or whiskey night? I smiled at my phone. Definitely whiskey. Maya listened intently as I explained my reasoning over pad thai and bourbon, sprawled across my living room floor with contract drafts and organizational charts spread between us. It's actually genius, she concluded, refilling our glasses. Keep your enemies closer and all that. Plus, you get her design talent without the constant undermining. If she accepts, I reminded her. And if she actually stops the undermining, she'll accept. Maya sounded certain. Tori would never give up the Martinez name and reputation. Starting from scratch would mean years of building credibility she already has here. I nudged one of the sketches with my toe, a preliminary design for the Sierra lobby centerpiece. Dad's succession plan suggested this exact arrangement. He knew her better than anyone. Smart man, Maya murmured. Speaking of plans, I came bearing news. She pulled an envelope from her bag, sliding it across the floor to me. This arrived at my place today, forwarded from the Design Fellowship. Committee. I stared at the heavy cream envelope emblazoned with the Westridge Design Studio logo. They used your address as my contact? As instructed on your application, she confirmed. Open it. My hands trembled slightly as I broke the seal. Inside was a single sheet of thick paper, the Westridge letterhead embossed at the top. Dear Ms. Martinez, we are pleased to inform you that your application for the Westridge Design Fellowship has been accepted. Your portfolio demonstrated exceptional creativity, technical skill, and innovative thinking, precisely the qualities we seek to nurture through our program. The one-year fellowship begins September 1st in Seattle and includes studio space, mentorship, and a $50,000 stipend. I lowered the letter, mind racing. I got in. Of course you did, Maya said, raising her glass and toast. Your work is incredible. The question is, what now? Seattle or Cedar Grove? Fellowship or family business? It was the question I'd been avoiding since Dad's will reading. The Westridge Fellowship had been my escape plan, my secret path to independence. Now, with Martinez Custom Furniture in my control, that escape felt more like abandonment. I can't leave, I said finally. Not now. The Sierra project is just beginning. Tori's position isn't settled, and I've barely started learning the business side. Maya studied me over the rim of her glass. Are you staying because you want to? Or because you feel obligated? Both, I admitted. Dad trusted me with his legacy. I can't just walk away. And the fellowship? I traced the embossed logo with my fingertip. I'll have to decline. Or defer, Maya suggested. Ask if you can postpone for a year. Get the business stabilized, then pursue your own development. They might not agree. They might, she countered. Your situation is compelling. Inherited family business after father's death. Worth asking. I folded the letter carefully, tucking it back into its envelope. I'll think about it. But even as I said the words, I knew my decision was made. Martinez Custom Furniture needed me now. My dreams of Seattle would have to wait. Tori accepted the creative director position the next morning, arriving at the office with a detailed list of conditions that Howard and I reviewed carefully before agreeing. By afternoon, we'd signed the paperwork, and I announced the new organizational structure to the staff. This transition hasn't been easy for any of us, I acknowledged, standing before the gathered employees. But today marks a new chapter for Martinez Custom Furniture. Victoria will lead our design department as creative director, bringing her considerable talent and vision to our projects. I'll focus on overall business strategy and operations, with Howard continuing as our COO. The relief on the craftsmen's faces was palpable. No one had wanted to choose sides between the Martinez sisters. The Sierra Hotel's contract is just the beginning, I continued. With Victoria's design innovation and our commitment to Martinez quality, we're positioned for growth while staying true to our core values. Tori stepped forward. My team will begin detailed production plans for Sierra next week. Bernard, I'll need your input on the teak sourcing for the lobby pieces. Elena, let's review fabric options for the guest suites this afternoon. As the meeting dispersed, I watched my sister seamlessly transition into her new role, confident and purposeful. Whatever personal conflict remained between us, professionally, we'd found a tentative peace. That peace was tested the following Monday when Nathan appeared in my office doorway, a stack of sustainability reports under his arm. Howard said you wanted to review these, he said, hovering at the threshold. I gestured to the chair across from my desk. Just leave them. I'll get to them later. Actually, there are some aspects I should walk you through. He sat down without invitation. The Forest Stewardship Council has new certification requirements that affect our vendors. I sighed, accepting the inevitable. Fine, make it quick. Nathan spread the reports on my desk, pointing out regulatory changes and their implications for our supply chain. Despite everything, his expertise was undeniable. Dad had hired him 7 years ago specifically for his knowledge of sustainable forestry and ethical sourcing, the very qualities that had first attracted me to him personally as well as professionally. We'll need to audit our Indonesian suppliers by Q3, he concluded. I can handle the process if you approve the budget. Draft a proposal and send it to Howard, I said, keeping my tone neutral. He'll review it with me. Nathan gathered his materials, but made no move to leave. Liv, can we talk? Really talk? About everything? We have nothing to discuss outside of work. We have 7 years to discuss, he countered. 7 years. Doesn't just disappear because circumstances changed. Circumstances? I echoed incredulously. Is that what you call falling in love with my sister while engaged to me? He flinched. I deserve that, but I also deserve a chance to explain. Explain what? How you managed to propose to me with a vintage ring I'd admired for years, then start sleeping with my sister 3 months later? What possible explanation could matter? I didn't plan it, he said quietly. You and we were comfortable, safe. I thought that was enough. Enough for a proposal? I shook my head in disbelief. You asked me to marry you because we were comfortable? I asked you to marry me because it seemed like the next logical step, he admitted. We'd been together 7 years. Everyone expected it. You expected it. His honesty hurt more than evasion would have. And Tori? What's your excuse there? Nathan ran a hand through his hair, a nervous gesture I once found endearing. Working with her on the Sierra project, I saw a different side of her, a passion, an intensity I'd never experienced before. It was like a force of nature. "So you couldn't resist," I said flatly. "How romantic." "I'm not proud of how it happened," he said. "We should have been honest with you sooner. The way you found out, at the coffee shop, that was wrong." "The betrayal was wrong, Nathan. The timing just compounded it." I stood up, needing to end this conversation. "Look, we have to work together. I accept that, but I don't need your explanations or apologies. What I need is professional distance." He nodded slowly. "I can respect that. But Liv, I hope someday." "Don't," I cut him off. "Don't talk about someday. Just focus on today, on doing your job and staying out of my way as much as possible." After he left, I sat staring at the sustainability reports he'd left behind, his words echoing in my mind. Comfortable. Safe. The next logical step. Had our relationship really meant so little to him? Had I been fooling myself for years, seeing love where there was only habit? But beneath the hurt, I felt something unexpected. Relief. Relief that I hadn't married a man who saw me as merely comfortable. Relief that I'd discovered the truth before making a lifetime commitment to someone who could so easily transfer his affections to my sister. My phone buzzed with a text from Tori. "Need your sign-off on the final lobby concept. My office when you're free. Work. Focus on work." I gathered the sustainability reports and headed to my sister's office, determined to maintain the professional equilibrium we'd established, whatever personal turmoil lingered beneath. The summer passed in a blur of activity as the Sierra Hotel's project moved from design to production. Tori threw herself into the creative process, working alongside the craftsmen in a way I'd never seen before. Without the pressure of running the entire business, she seemed to rediscover the joy of pure design. I divided my time between learning the financial aspects from Howard, visiting suppliers with Nathan, awkward but necessary, and developing my own small design projects on the side. The pocket watch Dad had left me became a talisman of sorts, accompanying me to important meetings in the vintage leather pouch he'd kept it in. One evening, working late in the quiet workshop, I discovered the hidden compartment in the watch that Dad had mentioned in his letter. Inside was a tiny handwritten note. "Time reveals truth. Trust yours, Olivia." Mom began coming to the workshop occasionally, sitting quietly with her knitting while I sketched or worked with the craftsmen. We rarely spoke about Dad or Tori or the inheritance, but her presence felt like silent support. "You remind me of him," she said one afternoon, watching me sand a table edge to perfect smoothness. "That focus, the way you lose yourself in the wood." "I always thought Tori was the one who took after him," I replied, surprised. Mom smiled sadly. "Tori took after his ambition. You inherited his soul." She returned to her knitting, adding, softly, "He realized it too, eventually." By August, the first Sierra pieces were ready for installation. Tori and I visited the hotel site together, watching as our joint vision began taking physical form in the partially constructed space. "The reception desk is even more impressive at full scale," I noted, running my hand along the salvaged teak surface with its intricate brass inlays. Tori nodded, making notes on her tablet. "The lighting needs adjustment. The brass should catch the overhead spots more dramatically." We worked in comfortable silence, moving through the space, evaluating each element against our mental blueprint. It was the longest we'd spent alone together since Dad's death, without tension erupting between us. "I saw Nathan yesterday," she said suddenly, disrupting the peace. "He mentioned you two talked." I kept my focus on the carved wave panels being installed along the feature wall. "Briefly, about sustainability certifications. He thinks you hate him." "I don't hate him," I said truthfully. "I don't feel much of anything toward him anymore. Tori stopped writing, studying me with an unreadable expression. You don't miss him at all? After 7 years? The question seemed genuinely puzzled rather than provocative. I considered it seriously before answering. I miss the idea of him, the security of having someone. But Nathan himself? I shook my head. He told me our relationship was comfortable and safe. That he proposed because it seemed like the logical next step. He said that? Tori looked genuinely shocked. Does that surprise you? That your passionate love affair began because he was bored with his comfortable fiancé? She set down her tablet. He wasn't bored, Liv. He was scared. Of what? Of settling for less than real love, she said simply. Nathan cares about you deeply. He always will. But what we have is different. Consuming. Consuming isn't always healthy, I observed, thinking of how quickly she'd absorbed him. Into her orbit, separated him from me. Maybe not, she acknowledged. But it's real. When was the last time you felt that kind of passion? For anything or anyone? The question lingered between us, unexpectedly insightful. When had I last felt truly passionate? Not with Nathan, I realized. Our relationship had indeed been comfortable, predictable. Perhaps even with my design work, I'd held back, accepting my secondary role in Dad's company, in Tori's shadow. The Westridge Fellowship, I said finally. I was passionate about that. Tori's head tilted in confusion. What fellowship? I explained about the prestigious design opportunity in Seattle, the application I'd completed with Dr. Chen's help, the acceptance letter that had arrived after Dad's death. You were planning to leave Cedar Grove, she realized. Before all this happened. I nodded. It was my escape plan, a chance to develop my own design identity away from, well, everything. But you turned it down because of the business. It wasn't a question. I deferred, I corrected. Asked to postpone for a year. They agreed, given the circumstances. Tori was silent for a long moment, watching the installation crew position a section of paneling. You should have gone, she said finally. This was supposed to be my company, my future. Instead, I'm working for my little sister, while you're putting your real dreams on hold. The bitterness in her voice was muted, but unmistakable. Is that how you see it? I asked. Like I stole your future? Didn't you? She met my gaze directly. Maybe not intentionally, but the result is the same. Dad changed his mind, gave you everything, and now I'm supposed to be grateful for a position in my own family's company. Our family's company, I corrected. And yes, Dad changed his mind. But ask yourself why, Tori. What did he see in those last months that made him reconsider everything he'd always assumed? She looked away, unwilling or unable to engage with the question. It doesn't matter now. What's done is done. But it did matter, I realized. It mattered enormously that Tori still couldn't see what Dad had finally recognized, that her vision for Martinez Furniture had always been about elevating herself, while mine was about honoring the legacy of craftsmanship he'd built. The fellowship is still there, I said, changing tack. Waiting for me next year? I could go, leave you in charge while I'm gone. Her head snapped up. What? Not permanently, I clarified, but as interim CEO, a trial run maybe, to see if we could eventually. Us share leadership more equally. Hope and suspicion warred in her expression. Why would you do that? Because you're right. I am putting my dreams on hold. And because despite everything, you're good at this, Tori. The business side comes naturally to you in a way it doesn't for me. So you'd just hand over control? After Dad specifically chose you? Not hand over, share, with very clear boundaries and expectations. I met her gaze steadily. Think about it. We don't have to decide anything today. The installation supervisor approached before she could respond, needing decisions about the placement of the statement lighting fixtures. We slipped back into professional mode, the personal conversation shelved but not forgotten. That night, I sat on my apartment balcony, watching the harbor lights shimmer on the water, Dad's pocket watch open in my palm. Time reveals truth. Trust yours. What was my truth? That I loved Martinez Furniture but also craved my own creative identity. That I respected Tori's talent but still struggled to trust her character. That Cedar Grove felt simultaneously like home and a trap. My phone lit up with a text from Dr. Chen. Westridge director visiting campus next week. Mentioned your deferred fellowship. Wants to meet. Lunch Tuesday? I stared at the message, heart racing. The Westridge director coming here, asking specifically. About me? What did it mean? Was the fellowship in jeopardy? I typed a quick affirmative response, then returned to my contemplation of the harbor. The water caught the moonlight, pathways of silver shifting with the gentle waves. Possibility, movement, change. Dad had given me Martinez Furniture, but perhaps his greater gift was freedom. The freedom to choose my own path, to define success, on my terms rather than living in Tori's shadow or following prescribed expectations. Could I find a way to honor his legacy while still pursuing my own dreams? Could I trust Tori enough to share leadership, knowing her history of taking what was mine? The answers weren't clear, but for the first time since Dad's death, I felt a sense of possibility rather than obligation. Whatever came next would be my choice, not a path forced upon me by circumstance or family expectations. I closed the pocket watch, its soft click definitive in the quiet night. Time would indeed reveal truth, and I was finally ready to discover mine. Westridge director Julia Winters was nothing like I'd imagined. Instead of the intimidating academic I'd expected, she was a small, vibrant woman in her 60s with cropped silver hair and penetrating green eyes. She arrived at the campus bistro where Dr. Chen had arranged our lunch meeting carrying a worn leather portfolio similar to the one Dad had used. "Olivia Martinez," she said, grasping my hand firmly. "I've been looking forward to meeting you. Your fellowship application was one of the most intriguing we received this year." "Thank you," I replied, surprised by her enthusiasm. "I appreciate the committee's flexibility regarding the deferment." "Circumstances change," she said simply, settling into her chair. "We understand that, but I'm here because your circumstances might offer an unexpected opportunity." Dr. Chen smiled cryptically as Julia opened her portfolio, extracting several photographs of furniture pieces. Elegant, innovative designs that somehow looked both modern and timeless. "Do you recognize these?" Julia asked, watching my face. I studied the images carefully. "They're beautiful. Contemporary interpretations of arts and crafts principles, but with unique joinery that..." "Wait." I leaned closer, recognizing a particular wood-bending technique. "These use my father's methods, the ones from his notebook." Julia and Dr. Chen exchanged a pleased glance. "Richard Martinez was my first design mentor," Julia explained. 30 years ago, before he founded Martinez Custom Furniture, before he married your mother. I apprenticed with him for 2 summers when he was still working out of a converted garage." I stared at her in shock. "Dad never mentioned you." She laughed softly. "Richard wasn't one to dwell on the past, but we kept in touch over the years. When your fellowship application crossed my desk, that distinctive Martinez approach to form and function, I knew immediately whose daughter you were." "Dad knew about the fellowship?" I asked, pieces falling into place. "About my application?" Dr. Chen nodded. "He contacted me after your first meeting with the committee. Wanted to know your chances." "He was proud of you," Julia added. "Said you had what he called the sight, the ability to see the potential in wood that others miss." Tears pricked at my eyes. Dad had known about my secret escape plan, had supported it even while preparing to entrust me with his company. The apparent contradiction suddenly made sense. He hadn't been asking me to choose between his legacy and my dreams, but finding a way for me to honor both. After Richard's passing, Julia continued gently, I contacted Gabrielle about a different arrangement. Rather than a standard fellowship, we'd like to propose a collaborative project between Westridge Design Studio and Martinez Custom Furniture. What kind of project? I asked, mind racing. A mentorship program, she explained. Combining Richard's traditional craftsmanship with contemporary design education. 4 apprentices per year, splitting their time between Seattle and Cedar Grove. Dr. Chen leaned forward. Martinez would provide the hands-on training in woodworking. Techniques. Westridge would handle the theoretical and contemporary design aspects. It would honor your father's legacy, Julia added, while creating a pipeline of talent for both organizations. And you, Olivia, would be the bridge, spending part of your time at Westridge as originally planned, and part at Martinez guiding the program. The proposal was breathtaking in its elegance, a solution that would allow me to pursue my own development at Westridge while maintaining my leadership at Martinez. A way to honor Dad's legacy while expanding it in new directions. This would mean significant changes to the fellowship, I noted. Additional responsibilities, travel between cities. Hence the increased stipend, Julia said, sliding a document across the table. And Westridge would provide housing in Seattle for your time there. I scanned the revised fellowship offer, noting the generous financial terms and flexible schedule. I don't know what to say. Say you'll consider it, Julia suggested. Talk to your team at Martinez. See if it aligns with your business goals as well as your personal ones. What about the fellowship? I deferred. Would I be giving up that spot? Not at all. This is an evolution of that opportunity, not a replacement. Julia collected her materials, preparing to leave. Richard always said you had the gift, Olivia. Now you have the chance to share it with the next generation, while continuing to develop it yourself. After Julia departed, Dr. Chen remained, watching me process everything I'd learned. Your father set this in motion, you know, before he got sick. He wanted to ensure you had options. He was preparing for this all along, I realized. The notebook, the succession, plan, even introducing me to Howard's financial expertise. He wasn't just choosing me over Tori, he was preparing me to lead without him. Richard Martinez was many things, Dr. Chen said with a smile, but short-sighted wasn't one of them. As I walked back to the workshop later, Julia's proposal took root in my imagination. A partnership between Martinez and Westridge, a program that would attract young talent to Cedar Grove while giving me the creative growth I craved in Seattle. A way to honor Dad's craftsmanship while evolving it for the future. There was just one question remaining. Could Tori accept this new vision? Or would she see it as yet another thing I was taking from her? I found her in the design studio, reviewing fabric samples for the Sierra guest rooms. She looked up as I entered, immediately noting my expression. What happened? She asked, setting aside her work. You look like you've seen a ghost. Not a ghost, I replied. A future, and I need to know if you can be part of it. I spent the next hour outlining Julia Winter's proposal to Tori, watching her face as she processed what it would mean for Martinez Custom Furniture and for our complicated personal dynamic. The mentorship program would transform our local family business into an educational institution with national recognition, while allowing me to pursue my own design development through the modified fellowship. So you'd be in Seattle half the time, Tori clarified, tapping her pen against her desk, and I'd be running things here while you're gone. With Howard's guidance, I added, and we'd share leadership of the apprenticeship program. Your design expertise would be essential to its success. She leaned back in her chair, studying me. Why include me at all? This could be your project entirely. Your vision. It was a fair question. After everything that had happened between us, collaboration wasn't the obvious choice. Because I can't be in two places at once, I said practically, and because despite our differences, you're brilliant at what you do. The Sierra project proved we're stronger together than apart. Business reasons, she noted. Nothing personal. Isn't that better? I countered. A professional partnership based on mutual benefit rather than forced sisterly affection? Something flickered across her face. Hurt, perhaps, or recognition. When did you get so pragmatic, Liv? You used to be the dreamer, the idealist. Inheritances change people, I said simply. So do betrayals. Tori flinched but didn't defend herself. Instead, she shifted focus to the practical aspects. Who would make final decisions while you're in Seattle? Would I have true authority? Or just be warming your seat? We'd need to define clear areas of responsibility. You'd have complete authority over daily operations and design direction. Major financial or strategic decisions would require mutual agreement. And if we disagree? Howard would mediate, I said. He's known both of us since childhood, and he has Dad's trust. Tori fell silent, staring out the window at the harbor where fishing boats were returning with the afternoon tide. Finally, she turned back to me. I'll need time to think about it, she said. This isn't just a professional decision for me. She gestured vaguely between us. There's too much history. I understand, I assured her. Take whatever time you need. Julia doesn't expect an answer immediately. As I turned to leave, Tori called after me. Liv, does Nathan know about this? The question caught me off guard. No. Why would he? Because his sustainability expertise would be valuable to the apprenticeship program, she said evenly. And because despite everything, he cares about your success. I kept my expression neutral. If we move forward with the partnership, all staffing decisions will be yours to make while I'm in Seattle, including Nathan's role. Walking back to my office, I considered Tori's reaction. She hadn't rejected the idea outright, which was promising, but her mention of Nathan troubled me. If we did create this partnership, I'd be entrusting half my, father's legacy to the sister who had betrayed me and the man who had broken my heart. Could I truly separate personal history from professional potential? Maya was waiting in my office, perched on the edge of my desk with barely contained excitement. Well, how did it go with the Westridge director? Don't leave out a single detail. I shared everything. Julia's connection to Dad, the proposed partnership, Tori's measured response. Maya listened intently, asking occasional questions about logistics and timelines. It's perfect, she declared when I finished. You get to pursue your design dreams without abandoning the business. Tori gets the operational control she craves without stealing your inheritance. And Cedar Grove gets an infusion of creative energy through the apprenticeship program. If Tori agrees, I reminded her. And if I can trust her to honor Dad's vision while I'm gone. Maya tilted her head thoughtfully. Do you think she wouldn't? I don't know, I admitted. 3 months ago, I would have said absolutely not. But lately, since the Sierra project, she's different. More focused on the work itself than on proving something. People can change, Maya offered, especially when they're no longer in competition for the same prize. What do you mean? Think about it, she explained. Your entire lives, you and Tori were competing for your father's approval, for recognition, for a place in the family business. Now that's settled. You own the company. She has a defined role. Maybe without that constant competition, she can finally focus on creation, rather than comparison. I considered Maya's perspective, remembering how Tori had worked alongside the craftsmen on the Sierra pieces. genuinely engaged with the materials and techniques rather than just the final product. Perhaps there was truth to Maya's theory. And, what about Nathan? I asked, voicing my lingering concern. If I do this, I'll be seeing him every time I'm back in Cedar Grove, working with him on the apprenticeship program. Maya's expression softened. Does that still hurt? Seeing him? I thought carefully before answering. Not in the way it did. I don't miss him exactly, but I miss who I thought he was, who we were together. 7 years is a long time, she acknowledged. But maybe this is your chance to redefine that relationship too. Not as lovers or even friends, but as professional colleagues who share a common goal. That sounds very mature and evolved, I noted dryly. Maya laughed. Hey, I didn't say. It would be easy. Just possible. Later that evening, I called Julia to share Tori's tentative interest and request more detailed information about the partnership structure. Julia promised to send formal documentation by the end of the week, along with examples of similar programs Westridge had established with other craft-focused businesses. Take your time reviewing everything, she advised. This is a significant commitment for both organizations. It needs to be right for everyone involved. After we hung up, I found myself drawn to Dad's workshop. The main production floor was quiet at this hour, but light spilled from beneath the door of the small, private studio Dad had maintained for experimental projects. I hesitated, then pushed the door open. Nathan looked up from the workbench, surprise flickering across his face. Liv. Sorry, I didn't realize anyone was still here. He was surrounded by wood samples and technical diagrams, clearly deep in research mode. Since our awkward conversation about the sustainability reports, we'd maintained careful professional distance, interacting only when necessary for business purposes. What are you working on? I asked, curiosity overcoming my usual reticence. Alternative hardwoods for the Sierra bedroom furniture, he explained, gesturing to the samples. The teak market is experiencing sustainability issues. I'm looking at lesser-known species with similar properties but better ecological profiles. Despite myself, I was drawn into the technical challenge. What about Iroko? Similar density and grain pattern to teak, but more sustainable harvesting practices. Nathan nodded appreciatively. That's on my short list. Also considering Sapel and Ovancol. Want to see the comparison data? For the next hour, we fell into a familiar rhythm of professional collaboration, discussing wood properties, supply chain ethics, and design implications without a single mention of our personal history. It felt oddly normal, as if we'd temporarily stepped into an alternate reality where we were simply colleagues who respected each other's expertise. You should discuss these options with Tori, I said finally, gathering my things to leave. The Sierra timeline doesn't allow for last-minute material changes. Already scheduled for tomorrow morning, he confirmed, packing up his samples. But I wanted your perspective first. You understand the technical requirements better than she does. The compliment, delivered matter-of-factly rather than as flattery, caught me off guard. Thanks. I'm glad the research is going well. An awkward silence fell between us, the brief illusion of normalcy dissolving as reality reasserted itself. Nathan cleared his throat. I heard about the Westridge director's visit, he said carefully. Campus gossip. Dr. Chen's assistant mentioned something about a partnership. Nothing's decided yet, I replied, unwilling to share details until everything was formalized. Just exploring possibilities. He hesitated, then said, Whatever it is, I hope it works out. You deserve good things, Liv. The simple kindness in his voice reopened a wound I'd thought was healing. Not because I still loved him, but because it reminded me of the friendship that had been the foundation of our relationship. A friendship destroyed not just by romantic betrayal, but by the loss of trust that came with it. Good night, Nathan, I said, turning to leave before emotion could complicate our fragile professional detente. "Liv?" he called after me, his voice stopping me at the door. For what it's worth, I really am sorry. Not just for how things ended, but for not recognizing what I had while I had it. I didn't turn around, didn't trust myself to maintain composure if I saw sincerity in his eyes. "It's worth very little now, but I accept your apology." Outside, the night air cooled my flushed cheeks as I walked to my car. The encounter with Nathan had been unexpectedly civil, even productive. Perhaps Maya was right, a new professional. Relationship was possible, given time and clear boundaries. But as I drove home along the familiar coastal road, I couldn't help wondering if I was strong enough to build this proposed partnership on such fragile personal foundations. Could I really divide my time between Seattle and Cedar Grove? Between my own creative development and stewardship of Dad's legacy? Between professional collaboration with Tori and the lingering hurt of her betrayal? The questions followed me, home into uneasy dreams of unfinished furniture and incomplete designs. The formal proposal from Westridge arrived on Friday morning, a comprehensive document outlining everything from financial projections to curriculum development for the apprenticeship program. I spent the weekend reviewing it with Howard, identifying questions and concerns to discuss with Julia before making any commitment. Monday morning, I found Tori waiting in my office, a stack of sketches in her hands and determination in her eyes. "I've been thinking about the Westridge partnership," she announced without preamble. "And I have some ideas for how we could structure the apprenticeship program to maximize both educational and production value." She spread her sketches across my desk, detailed plans for workshop modifications, teaching stations, even a proposed schedule that would integrate the apprentices into our regular production workflow while still allowing for dedicated learning time. "You've put a lot of thought into this," I observed, surprised by her enthusiasm. "I couldn't sleep," she admitted. "The potential is significant, not just for the business, but for preserving Dad's techniques, his approach to woodworking." She tapped one of the sketches. "We could document everything, create a comprehensive curriculum based on his methods." Her excitement was contagious, her vision for the program aligning perfectly with what I'd imagined but hadn't yet articulated. For a moment, I glimpsed what might have been possible between us all along, had competition not poisoned our relationship from childhood. "So, you're interested?" I asked cautiously. "Yes," she said firmly. "With conditions, of course. I'll need real authority while you're in Seattle, not just the appearance of it. And I want to be involved in selecting the apprentices. If we're going to invest in teaching these people, they need to be worthy of Dad's legacy." The possessiveness in her voice, Dad's legacy, caught my attention. Despite our conflicts, despite everything that had happened, Tori still saw herself as the guardian of our father's work. Perhaps in a different way than I did, but no less sincerely. "Those terms are reasonable," I agreed. "I'll draft an operating agreement with Howard that clearly defines our respective authorities and responsibilities. And of course, you'll be involved in apprentice selection." She nodded, satisfied, then hesitated before adding, "There's one more thing. Nathan." I stiffened involuntarily. What about him? "His sustainability expertise would be valuable to the program," she said carefully. "The ethical sourcing component is essential to Dad's philosophy, and Nathan understands that better than anyone." It was the same point she'd raised earlier, and I still wasn't sure if she was advocating for his professional contribution or trying to ensure her boyfriend remained comfortably employed. "If his involvement is strictly professional," I said. "Finally, I have no objection, but I won't work directly with him. That responsibility would fall to you or Howard." Tori studied my face for a moment, then nodded. "Understood. I'll talk to him about developing the sustainability curriculum for the apprentices." As she gathered her sketches, she paused, a hint of vulnerability showing through her usual confident demeanor. "Thank you, Liv. for considering this partnership, for including me when you could have shut me out completely. We're still family, I said simply, despite everything. After she left, I sat contemplating our conversation, particularly her enthusiasm for documenting Dad's techniques. It was the first time I'd heard her express reverence for the craftsmanship itself, rather than just the business success it had generated. Perhaps losing the company had forced her to reconsider what she truly valued about our father's legacy. I called Julia to share the positive development, and we scheduled a formal meeting with all stakeholders for the following week. The partnership was taking shape, moving from concept to reality with surprising speed. That evening, I drove to the small coastal cabin Dad had left me, a property I'd visited only once since discovering its existence. Situated on a bluff overlooking the ocean, the cabin was simple but beautifully crafted, every detail bearing Dad's unmistakable touch, from the hand-turned balusters on the porch railing to the built-in furniture that maximized the compact space. I unlocked the door and stepped inside, breathing in the scent of cedar and sea air. This place had been Dad's retreat, his private workshop where he experimented with designs away from the pressure of commercial production. The main room was dominated by a massive work table positioned to capture the view, tools neatly arranged along one wall, sketches pinned to another. Moving through the space, I discovered evidence of Dad's final projects: wood samples for techniques similar to those on the flash drive, prototype joints for furniture that would never be completed, notebooks filled with his precise handwriting detailing experiments and observations. This, I realized, was the heart of Dad's legacy, not the successful business or the prestigious clients, but the quiet, painstaking pursuit of craftsmanship for its own sake. And he had entrusted it to me, not just the cabin itself, but the philosophy it represented. I settled at the work table as the sun began to set, opening Dad's notebook to find his last entries dated just weeks before his diagnosis. The final page contained a simple sketch of what appeared to be a teaching station, with notes about sightlines and ergonomics for demonstration purposes. He had been thinking about teaching, about passing on his knowledge. The realization sent a shiver through me. Dad had been planning something similar to the Westridge partnership before his death, laying groundwork I hadn't recognized until now. As darkness fell, I lit the lamps and continued exploring, finding, in a small desk drawer, a sealed envelope addressed to me in Dad's handwriting. Inside was a letter dated 2 months before his death. Olivia, if you're reading this, you've discovered the cabin and hopefully begun to understand why I've kept it separate from the business all these years. Some work needs to be done away from commercial pressures, guided only by curiosity and respect for the material. I've spent my life building a business that provides security for our family, but I sometimes wonder if the success hasn't overshadowed the original purpose: to create beautiful, honest things that connect people to something enduring in a disposable world. You've inherited this sensibility, though you may not fully recognize it yet. Victoria has other gifts, equally valuable but different in nature. I've watched you both struggle to find your places, often in opposition to each other, when your strengths could be complementary if only you could see beyond competition. The business has financial value, of course, but its true worth lies in the philosophy of craftsmanship it represents. I hope you'll find a way to preserve that, whether within Martinez Custom Furniture or through other channels. The cabin is yours now. Use it as I have, as a place for experimentation, for pure creation, for teaching if that calls to you. The quiet here has always helped me hear the wood more clearly. With love and faith in your hands, Dad. I read the letter twice, tears blurring the words the second time. Even before his diagnosis, Dad had been contemplating his legacy, considering how to pass on not just a business, but a philosophy. The Westridge partnership wasn't just aligned with his wishes, it was almost eerily convergent with what he himself had been planning. I slept at the cabin that night, surrounded by Dad's creative presence, and drove directly to the workshop the next morning with renewed clarity and purpose. Howard was already in his office, reviewing quarterly financial projections. "I need your help finalizing the operating agreement with Tori," I said, settling into the chair across from him. "And I think we should bring Nathan into the discussion about the apprenticeship program's sustainability curriculum." Howard raised an eyebrow at my businesslike tone. "You seem resolved. Something happened yesterday?" I placed Dad's letter on the desk between us, just gaining perspective on what Dad really wanted for the business, for all of us. He read the letter carefully, then nodded as if confirming something he'd already suspected. Richard was planning for the future long before he got sick. This partnership with Westridge, it's exactly the kind of evolution he would have wanted. "So you think we should proceed?" "Absolutely," Howard said without hesitation. "And I think with clear boundaries and responsibilities, you and Victoria can make it work. The past few months have changed her too, you know." "How so?" I asked, curious about his perspective as someone who had known both of us since childhood. Howard considered his answer carefully. "Victoria has always defined herself by external validation. Your father's approval, client praise, professional recognition. Losing the company forced her to confront who she is without those things, what she truly values about this work." "And what did she discover?" "That's for her to say," he replied diplomatically. "But I've noticed a shift in her design approach. Less concern with trends, more attention to the intrinsic qualities of the materials. More like your father's work, actually." He smiled slightly. "More like yours." The observation surprised me, but thinking back to the Sierra project, I recognized the truth in Howard's words. Tori's recent designs did show more respect for the wood itself, less imposition of style for style's sake. "Speaking of Victoria," Howard continued, "she mentioned you might be willing to include Nathan in the apprenticeship planning. Are you sure you're comfortable with that?" I thought about my encounter with Nathan in the workshop, the easy professional rapport we'd managed to maintain despite our history. As long as my direct interaction with him is minimal, yes. His expertise is valuable to the program. Howard studied my face. "This is very mature of you, Liv. Not everyone could separate personal history from professional possibilities this way." "I'm trying," I admitted. "For Dad's legacy, if nothing else." By the time the formal meeting with Julia Winters arrived, the following week, we had developed a comprehensive proposal for the partnership. Julia brought 2 colleagues from Westridge, while our team consisted of me, Tori, Howard, and, with some awkwardness, Nathan, whose sustainability curriculum framework had impressed even Julia. The meeting unfolded with surprising harmony, each team member contributing expertise to shape what would become the Richard Martinez Fellowship for Sustainable Woodcraft. The program would accept 4 apprentices annually for an intensive 2-year curriculum split between Cedar Grove and Seattle, combining traditional craftsmanship with contemporary design principles and ethical sourcing practices. "This exceeds my expectations," Julia said as we concluded the preliminary agreement. "Richard would be enormously proud of what you've created here." "When would the first cohort begin?" I asked, already mentally rearranging my schedule to accommodate the new responsibilities. "January," Julia suggested. "That gives us 4 months to finalize curriculum, modify the workshop spaces, and select the initial apprentices. You'd begin your residency at Westridge in November, giving you time to establish yourself before the teaching begins." The timeline was aggressive but feasible. I glanced at Tori, who nodded her agreement. "We'll be ready," she assured Julia. "The workshop modifications are already in progress." As the Westridge team departed, promising to send final contract documentation within the week, I found myself standing between Tori and Nathan in the conference room, an odd tableau of past conflicts and future collaboration. Well, Nathan said, breaking the slightly awkward silence, that went surprisingly well. Indeed, Howard agreed, gathering his notes. I think this calls for a celebration. Dinner at Harbor House tonight? My treat. The invitation included all of us, me, Tori, Nathan, Howard, even Maya, whom Howard had come to know through our planning sessions. I hesitated, uncertain about a social gathering with my sister and ex-fiancé, but Tori spoke before I could formulate a response. Actually, she said, glancing between Nathan and me, I think Liv and I should celebrate privately first, sister to sister. We have some things to discuss before we take this partnership further. Howard, ever perceptive, nodded immediately. Of course. We can save the team celebration for after the contracts are signed. Nathan, join me for a drink. Instead, I have questions about that FSC certification process you mentioned. After they left, Tori turned to me with uncharacteristic nervousness. Lighthouse Cafe? Neutral territory. Sure, I agreed, curious about what she wanted to discuss. That required privacy and neutral territory. The cafe was quiet in the late afternoon lull, allowing us to claim the corner table by the windows overlooking the harbor. We ordered coffee and sat in silence for several moments, watching sailboats tack against the wind. I need to tell you something, Tori said finally. About Nathan, about us. My stomach tightened. If this is about your relationship, I really don't. It's not what you think, she interrupted. It's about how it started, why it started. I gripped my coffee cup, unsure I wanted to hear this. Tori, please, she said, a catch in her voice. I need to say this before we commit to this partnership, before we try to build something together professionally. Her obvious distress made me reluctant to shut down the conversation, despite my discomfort. All right, I'm listening. Tori took a deep breath. Nathan didn't leave you for me because he fell madly in love. He left because I deliberately set out to take him from you. The blunt confession hit like a physical blow. What? After Dad started spending more time with you in the workshop, after I realized he was reconsidering the succession plan, I was desperate, angry. I wanted to hurt you the way I was hurting. She couldn't meet my eyes. Nathan was the most important thing in your life, so I targeted him. Targeted him, I repeated, my voice hollow. She nodded miserably. I manipulated the Sierra Project assignments to work closely with him. I flirted, confided in him about feeling overlooked by Dad, created opportunities to be alone together. I knew exactly what I was doing. The calculated nature of the betrayal was somehow worse than if it had been an impulsive attraction. My hands trembled slightly as I set down my cup. Why are you telling me this now? Because the partnership requires trust, she said simply. And you can't truly trust me without knowing the worst of what I'm capable of. What I did. Does Nathan know you're telling me this? She shook her head. No. And he doesn't know it started as revenge. It became real for him. For both of us eventually. I sat with this revelation, letting it settle alongside everything else I'd learned about my sister, my father, myself in these months since Dad's death. The hurt was there, refreshed by new details, but alongside it was something unexpected. A strange relief in finally hearing the unvarnished truth. So what now? I asked finally. You've confessed. Do you expect forgiveness? Absolution? No, she said quietly. I don't deserve either. I just thought you should know everything before deciding whether you can really work with me. Trust me with Dad's legacy while you're in Seattle. I studied my sister's face, seeing genuine regret mingled with the fear of rejection. For perhaps the first time in our adult lives, Tori was being completely honest, showing real vulnerability instead of the perfect facade she typically maintained. Why did it matter so much? I asked suddenly. Dad's approval, the business, being the favorite. Why did you need it so desperately that you'd hurt me to get it? Tori looked surprised by the question, as if the answer should be obvious. Because it was all I had, she said finally. You had your talent, your quiet confidence, your authenticity. People respect you for who you are. I've only ever been respected for what I achieve. The insight into her perspective stunned me. All these years, I'd envied Tori's apparent confidence, her easy success, never realizing she envied my sense of self that existed independent of external validation. That's not true, I said gently. Your design talent is genuine. Your business acumen is impressive. Those things are yours, not just reflections of Dad's approval. She blinked rapidly, fighting unexpected emotion. Maybe, but I never believed that. Not until I lost everything and had to figure out who I was without the golden child identity. We sat in silence again, the confession hanging between us, neither fully resolved nor dismissed. Finally, I reached a decision. Thank you for telling me, I said. For being honest, even knowing it might change my mind about the partnership. Has it? She asked, tension evident in her voice. Changed your mind? I considered the question carefully, weighing the betrayal against the potential, the past against the possible future. No, I said finally, but it does change the conditions. What conditions? Complete transparency from now on, I said firmly. About the business, about your intentions, about everything. And professional boundaries with Nathan while we're all working together. I don't need to witness your relationship while trying to build this partnership. Tori nodded immediately. Agreed. Anything else? Yes, I said, meeting her gaze steadily. No more competition. No more trying to prove who Dad loved more or who deserves what. We each bring different strengths to this partnership. We need to respect those differences rather than trying to outdo each other. I can do that, she said, relief evident in her voice. I want to do that. For the business, for Dad's legacy, for us, maybe, eventually. I wasn't ready to commit to repairing our personal relationship, but I recognized the olive branch she was extending. One step at a time, I suggested. Let's see if we can work together effectively first. As we left the cafe, Tori stopped on the sidewalk, hesitating before asking, Will you tell Nathan that you know? About how it started? I considered the question, understanding its implications for their relationship. If Nathan learned that Tori had deliberately set out to seduce him as revenge against me, would he see their relationship differently? Would it taint whatever genuine feelings had developed between them? No, I decided. That's between you and him. But Tori? If what you have with him is real now, you should consider telling him yourself. Relationships built on secrets rarely last. She nodded, accepting the advice with uncharacteristic humility. Thank you, Liv, for listening, for not walking away. As I drove home that evening, I reflected on how much had changed in the months since Dad's death. I had inherited a business I never expected to lead, discovered talents my father had recognized before I did, and now stood on the threshold of a partnership that would honor his legacy while allowing me to pursue my own creative development. And perhaps most surprisingly, I had begun to see my sister as a complex, flawed human being rather than the perfect nemesis of my childhood. Her confession about Nathan had hurt, reopening wounds I thought were healing, but it had also offered something I hadn't expected, a chance for honesty between us after years of competition and resentment. Whether that honesty could eventually lead to trust, to genuine sisterhood, remained to be seen. But it was a beginning, a foundation on which to build our professional partnership, if nothing else. I reached for Dad's pocket watch, now a constant companion in my jacket pocket, running my thumb over its worn surface. Time reveals truth. Trust yours. The truth was that both Tori and I had changed in these months since losing Dad. Both of us had been forced to reconsider who we were, what we valued, how we defined ourselves beyond the roles we'd played in the family dynamic. The Richard Martinez Fellowship for Sustainable Woodcraft would be our joint legacy, a way to honor Dad's craftsmanship while creating our own paths forward. It wasn't the future either of us had imagined, but perhaps it was the one we needed, a chance to build something together instead of tearing each other down. As Cedar Grove's harbor lights came into view, I felt a sense of possibility I hadn't experienced since reading the Westridge acceptance letter months ago. The path forward wasn't clear of obstacles. Tori's confession had ensured that. But it was a path with purpose, with meaning beyond mere survival or escape. Tomorrow would bring contracts to sign, plans to finalize, a future to begin building. But tonight, driving along the familiar coastal road with the pocket watch in my hand and Dad's legacy in my heart, I allowed myself to believe that something good could emerge from all the loss and betrayal. Something Dad would have been proud to see his daughters create together. The Richard Martinez Fellowship for Sustainable Woodcraft became official on a crisp October morning, with contracts signed in the same conference room where I'd first presented my modifications to Tori's Sierra designs. Julia beamed as we exchanged signed copies, her enthusiasm infectious. "This is just the beginning," she promised, shaking hands with our team. "The program we're creating will influence furniture design and craftsmanship for generations." The weight of that promise, the responsibility it entailed, settled on my shoulders as I prepared for my November departure to Seattle. The workshop had been modified to accommodate teaching stations, curriculum had been developed, and applications from prospective apprentices were already arriving. Tori had thrown herself into the preparations with surprising dedication, working late into evenings to ensure everything would run smoothly during my absence. Our professional relationship had stabilized in the weeks since her confession at the Lighthouse Cafe, though a certain wariness remained between us. The applicant interviews are scheduled for December 12th and 13th, she informed me as we reviewed the transition plan in my office. That gives you time to settle in Seattle, then return for the selection process. Howard will handle contract negotiations with Sierra for the second phase while you're gone. "And the prototype for the hotel restaurant?" I asked, checking items against our shared task list. "Bernard is finalizing it now. We should have approval before you leave." She hesitated, then added, "I'd like Nathan to accompany me to the sustainability conference in Portland next month. Several potential lumber suppliers will be there, and his expertise would be valuable." I appreciated her directness, the transparency we'd agreed upon after her confession. "That makes sense. Just keep the focus professional." "Of course," she agreed quickly. "The business comes first." This had become our unspoken truce, acknowledgement of our complicated personal history alongside a commitment to prioritize the company and Dad's legacy. Whether it would evolve into genuine reconciliation remained uncertain, but it was enough to build a working partnership upon. My last night in Cedar Grove before departing for Seattle, Maya insisted on hosting a small gathering at her apartment. Just the two of us, Howard, Bernard, and a few other close colleagues from the workshop. Conspicuously absent were Tori and Nathan, a deliberate choice on Maya's part to ensure my farewell felt supportive rather than strained. "To Olivia," Howard toasted, raising his glass, "who proved that quiet strength can move mountains, or in this case, transform a family business into something even more meaningful." "And to Richard," Bernard added, his weathered face softening with memory, "who saw what the rest of us missed and trusted his daughter to carry his vision forward." Later, as guests departed, Maya pulled me onto her small balcony overlooking the harbor. "Are you ready for this? Really ready?" I considered the question seriously. "As ready as I can. B, the business is stable, the Sierra project is on track, and Tori seems genuinely committed to making this work." "That's not what I asked," Maya pointed out gently. "I asked if you're ready." For Seattle? For Westridge? For pursuing your own designs without apology. The distinction mattered. For months, I'd focused on what Dad would want, what the business needed, what might heal the rift with Tori. Somewhere along the way, my own readiness, my own desires, had become secondary considerations. "I think I am," I said finally. Scared, but excited. "It feels right, Maya. For the first time since Dad died, I'm making a choice that's truly mine, not just responding to circumstances beyond my control." She hugged me fiercely. "That's my girl. Just promise you won't let Seattle steal you away permanently. Cedar Grove needs its quiet revolutionary." The drive to Seattle the next morning was solitary and reflective, the coastal highway gradually giving way to denser forests and, eventually, the sprawling approach to the city. Julia had arranged a small studio apartment near the Westridge campus, its large windows and efficient layout reminding me pleasantly of Dad's coastal cabin. My first week at Westridge passed in a whirlwind of introductions, orientation sessions, and studio assignments. The creative energy of the place was intoxicating. Designers at various career stages sharing ideas freely, critiquing each other's work with constructive honesty, experimenting without the pressure of commercial deadlines. "You're settling in well," Julia observed, joining me for coffee after my first design presentation to the Westridge faculty. "Your concept for modular public seating generated quite a buzz among the industrial design team." "It's liberating," I admitted, "working without constantly calculating production costs or client preferences. Just exploring what's possible." She smiled knowingly. "That's the point of the fellowship, freedom to follow your creative instincts. But you're bringing something valuable to our community too. Your practical knowledge of materials and production methods grounds the more theoretical designers." In the evenings, I explored my Seattle neighborhood, discovering cozy cafes and bookstores, sketching in parks when weather permitted, and slowly allowing myself to embrace this temporary identity. Not Olivia Martinez of Martinez Custom Furniture, but simply Liv, designer and creator, defined by my work rather than my family connections. Tori called weekly with business updates, her reports detailed and transparent as promised. The Sierra project continued on schedule, new client inquiries were steady, and preparations for the fellowship program progressed smoothly. "The apprentice applications are impressive," she told me during our third week of separation. 26. Candidates for 4 positions. Howard and I have narrowed it to 12 for in-person interviews when you return. "Any standouts?" I asked, curled on my apartment window seat watching rain pattern the glass. "A few. There's a former architecture student from Portland who's been working with reclaimed materials. Her portfolio shows real promise. And a cabinet maker from Michigan whose joinery work is exceptional." The ease of our conversation still surprised me sometimes. This new dynamic where we discussed work as colleagues rather than competitors. Not quite friends, certainly not. The close sisters we might have been in another life, but partners in a shared purpose. "How's Nathan?" I asked, the question emerging before I could reconsider. Tori hesitated before answering. "He's fine. Busy with the sustainability curriculum. Development." Another pause. I told him Liv. About why I pursued him initially. About the revenge motive. This was unexpected. "How did he take it?" "About as well as you'd expect," she said, her voice tight with controlled emotion. "He needed space to process it. We're taking a step back, reassessing." "I'm sorry," I said, surprised to find I meant it. Despite everything, I didn't wish them unhappiness. "Don't be," she replied. "It was necessary. A relationship built on manipulation, no matter how real it became later. That foundation would always be there, unacknowledged. At least now there's honesty between us." It was the most mature thing I'd ever heard from my sister. An acknowledgement of consequences I wouldn't have expected from the Tori I grew up with. Perhaps Howard was right. Losing the company, being forced to redefine herself beyond Dad's apparent favorite, had changed her in fundamental ways. That took courage, I offered. Telling him the truth, knowing it might end things. I learned it from you, she said simply. Watching you these past months, how you've handled everything with dignity, even when it would have been easier to lash out or walk away. I'm trying to deserve this partnership, Liv, not just professionally. The acknowledgement warmed something long cold between us. Not forgiveness exactly, but the possibility of it. A door left slightly ajar, rather, then firmly closed. December arrived with unexpected snowfall, transforming Seattle into a winter postcard and complicating my travel plans back to Cedar Grove for the apprentice interviews. I managed to catch the last flight before the airport closed, landing in a coastal rain that felt like coming home despite everything. Howard met me at the airport, his familiar presence a welcome sight after weeks among strangers. "Welcome back, CEO," he greeted me with a warm hug. "How's the design world treating?" "You? Surprisingly well," I admitted as we drove through the rainy night. "I've completed 2 original pieces for the West Ridge mid-year exhibition. Julia thinks one of them has commercial potential." "Of course it does," he said without surprise. "You've always had the gift. Richard knew it long before you did." At the workshop the next morning, I was greeted with unexpected warmth, craftsmen pausing their work to welcome me back, Elena from the office bringing my favorite coffee, even Bernard giving me a gruff hug that spoke volumes from the usually reserved master craftsman. "The place isn't the same without you," he told me, leading me through the production floor where the second phase of Sierra Furniture was taking shape. "Victoria keeps everything running smoothly, but she doesn't understand the wood the way you do." Tori was waiting in the conference room, interview schedules and applicant portfolios neatly arranged. She looked different somehow, her hair slightly shorter, her usual perfect makeup more subdued, her expression less guarded than I remembered. "Welcome back," she said, rising to greet me. "How was the flight?" "Bumpy, but on time. Seattle's buried in snow." We fell into a comfortable review of the apprentice candidates, discussing their relative strengths and what each might bring to the program. The shortlisted applicants would arrive that afternoon for the first round of interviews, a process we'd designed to evaluate both technical skills and philosophical alignment with Dad's approach to craftsmanship. Nathan developed a practical assessment for their understanding of sustainable sourcing, Tori explained, pushing a document across the table. Each candidate will evaluate these sample materials and explain their environmental impact. I reviewed the assessment, impressed by its thoroughness. "This is good. Where is he, by the way? I expected him to be part of the interview panel." Tori's expression tightened slightly. "He thought his presence might be awkward for you. He'll join us tomorrow for the technical evaluations, but suggested Howard take his place for the initial interviews." The consideration surprised me, though perhaps it shouldn't have. Despite everything, Nathan had always been fundamentally kind. It was one of the qualities that had drawn me to him initially. "That's unnecessary," I said. "We're all professionals here. The candidates deserve our complete attention without personal complications." She nodded, relief evident in her expression. "I'll let him know. And Liv? Thank you for making this easier than it needs to be." The interviews proceeded smoothly, each candidate bringing unique perspectives and skills to the conversation. By evening, we had identified 6 finalists for the next day's hands-on assessment in the workshop. Rather than returning to Maya's apartment where I was staying during this visit, I found myself drawn to Dad's coastal cabin as darkness fell. The place felt different in winter, the ocean wilder, the isolation more pronounced, the simple structure a haven against the elements. I built a fire in the small wood stove and settled at Dad's work table with my Seattle sketchbook, reviewing designs I'd developed at Westridge. Without conscious intention, I began modifying one of them, a contemporary desk with hidden compartments, incorporating techniques from Dad's notebook that would enhance both its functionality and visual harmony. A knock at the door startled me from my concentration. Opening it, I found Nathan on the porch, rain beating on his jacket, an apologetic expression on his familiar face. "Sorry to intrude," he said quickly. "Howard mentioned you might be here. I have the technical assessment materials for tomorrow, and Tori thought you'd want to review them tonight." I hesitated, then stepped back to allow him entry. "Come in. It's miserable out there." He entered cautiously, like a visitor to foreign territory, handing me a folder before moving to warm his hands at the wood stove. "I've never been here before. Richard's private workshop." "Dad didn't bring many people here," I explained, scanning the assessment documents. "It was his retreat, his thinking space." Nathan nodded, looking around with obvious appreciation for the craftsmanship evident in every detail. "It suits you somehow. The simplicity, the focus on what matters." The observation felt too personal, too reminiscent of our former closeness. I returned to the documents, keeping my tone professional. "These look comprehensive. You've put a lot of thought into evaluating their technical knowledge." "It matters," he said simply. "The ethics of what we create, where materials come from, how they're harvested, the environmental impact of our choices." Richard understood that before, it was fashionable. "He did," I agreed, setting the folder aside. "Thank you for bringing these. You didn't need to drive all the way out here in this weather." Nathan remained by the fire, seemingly reluctant to leave. "Tori told me she explained everything to you about how we started." I tensed, unprepared for this conversation. "She did." "I should have realized," he said quietly. "Should have recognized the manipulation for what it was. That doesn't excuse my actions, but I want you to know I never meant to hurt you, Liv." "Intentions matter less than choices," I replied, my voice steadier than I felt. "You made yours." He nodded, accepting the judgment without defense. "For what it's worth, I ended things with Tori last week, completely this time. The information shouldn't have affected me. Yet something shifted in my chest. Not hope or rekindled feeling, but perhaps the final release of something long held. I'm sorry it didn't work out." "Don't be," he said, echoing Tori's words from our phone conversation. It was necessary. Neither of us could move forward with that beginning between us. He moved toward the door. "I should go. Let you get back to your work." "Nathan," I called as he reached for the handle. "Are you still planning to be part of the fellowship program? Your sustainability curriculum is important to its success." He turned, surprise evident in his expression. "If you want me to be?" I assumed after everything. "The program is bigger than our personal history," I said firmly. "Dad's legacy deserves our best efforts, regardless of the past." Relief crossed his face. "Then yes, I'm still in. Thank you, Liv." After he left, I returned to my sketching, but my mind kept circling back to the brief conversation. Nathan ending his relationship with Tori, both of them recognizing the toxicity of its origins, the strange symmetry of all three of us now, standing alone, redefined by choices and consequences, connected still by Dad's legacy, but no longer entangled in the emotional triangulation that had caused so much pain. The next morning brought practical assessments for our finalists, each candidate working at a station in the workshop to demonstrate their understanding of wood properties, joinery techniques, and design principles. Tori, Nathan, Howard, Bernard, and I observed quietly, comparing notes as the day progressed. By late afternoon, our decision was unanimous. 4 apprentices selected for their complementary strengths and shared passion for woodcraft. The Michigan cabinet maker, the Portland architect, a furniture restoration specialist from New Orleans, and a young carpenter from Cedar Grove itself, his calloused hands speaking to experience beyond his years. "A good group," Howard declared as we finalized the acceptance paperwork. "Richard would approve." "They each bring something different," Tori agreed. "But they all understand the soul of the wood. That's what matters most." Her use of Dad's phrase, "the soul of the wood," caught my attention. It was something she'd once dismissed as unmarketable sentimentality, yet now she spoke it with genuine conviction. We celebrated the selections with a quiet dinner at Harbor House. Just our core team, me, Tori, Howard, Nathan, and Bernard. The inevitable awkwardness between Tori and Nathan was palpable but contained, both maintaining professional courtesy for the sake of the program. January 15th, Howard confirmed as we reviewed next steps over dessert. The apprentices arrive, and the Richard Martinez Fellowship officially begins. "Which means publicity," Tori added. Julia's team at Westridge is coordinating with local press in both Seattle and Cedar Grove. This is the first program of its kind in the region. It's generating significant interest in the design community. And the first Sierra installation is complete, Nathan reported. Initial guest feedback is overwhelmingly positive. The craftsmanship details are specifically mentioned in several reviews. Pride warmed me as I listened to these updates. Pride in what we'd accomplished together. Despite the personal complications, pride in how Dad's vision had not just survived, but evolved into something even more meaningful. My return to Seattle the following day was bittersweet. The month ahead, my last as a full-time resident before the fellowship program would require my presence in Cedar Grove. I'd grown attached to my simple apartment, to the creative community. At Westridge, to the freedom of focusing solely on design without administrative responsibilities. Julia noticed my contemplative mood during our weekly review session. "Second thoughts about the partnership, the program?" "Not at all," I assured her. "Just realizing how quickly time has passed. How much has changed in less than a year." She nodded, understanding. Life rarely follows the paths we expect. Sometimes, the detours lead to better destinations than we could have planned. "Philosophical today," I observed with a smile. "Hazard of age," she replied. "You gain perspective, if nothing else." Your father understood that too. He told me once that his greatest regret was allowing success to overshadow purpose for too many years. "When did he say that?" I asked, surprised. "Last spring, when he called about your fellowship application. He was proud of you, Olivia. Not just for your talent, but for your courage in charting your own course." The revelation that Dad had discussed me with Julia months before his diagnosis, before the changed will, before everything unraveled, settled something restless within me. His choice to leave me the business hadn't been a last-minute decision, or a punishment for Tori. It had been the culmination of a longer reassessment, a recognition of what each of his daughters truly needed. The month passed quickly. My time divided between completing pieces for the Westridge exhibition and finalizing curriculum details for the fellowship program. Julia arranged a small farewell gathering before my departure, my fellow designers, offering genuine appreciation for the practical knowledge I'd shared during my residency. "You've made a lasting impression here," Julia told me as we said goodbye. "The door remains open whenever you need creative space away from business responsibilities." Returning to Cedar Grove in January felt different from my brief December visit, less like stepping back into the past and more like moving forward into a new chapter. The workshop hummed with anticipation as we prepared for the apprentices' arrival, teaching stations finalized, materials organized, schedules coordinated between Seattle and Cedar Grove. Tori had maintained the business flawlessly during my absence, securing 2 new client contracts and finalizing the second phase of the Sierra installation. Whatever personal turmoil she'd experienced following her breakup with Nathan remained carefully compartmentalized, her professional focus unwavering. "The press is confirmed for the opening ceremony," she informed me as we walked through the modified workshop space. Local television, design blogs, even that furniture quarterly Dad always respected. "Nervous?" I asked, noticing the slight tension in her posture. "A little," she admitted. "This is bigger than anything we've done before. More visible, more significant for the industry." "We're ready," I assured her. "The curriculum is solid, the apprentices are talented, and the Martinez-Westridge partnership has Julia's full support." She nodded, then added hesitantly, "I've been thinking about Dad's cabin, about creating something similar for the apprentices, a retreat space where they could work on experimental projects without commercial pressures." The suggestion revealed how deeply Tori had come to understand Dad's philosophy in recent months. "That's a wonderful idea. Where would you locate it?" "There's that parcel adjacent to the cabin," she said. "It came on the market last week. We could build something simple but inspiring, a place for pure creation like Dad had." It was exactly the kind of long-term thinking the fellowship program needed. Not just teaching techniques, but creating an environment that nurtured the same creative spirit Dad had embodied. I found myself genuinely excited by Tori's vision, by this tangible evidence of how she'd grown beyond the competitive, status-focused sister I'd known all my life. "Let's do it," I agreed. "We can present the concept to the board next month, after the program launches." The apprentices arrived on a clear January morning, their nervous excitement palpable as Bernard led them through the workshop, explaining equipment and safety protocols. Howard handled administrative details, while Nathan introduced the sustainability principles that would inform all their work. That afternoon, we gathered for the official launch ceremony, a small crowd of local dignitaries, design professionals, and media representatives assembled in the main workshop space. Julia had traveled from Seattle with several Westridge faculty members, lending institutional weight to the occasion. At Howard's signal, Tori and I stepped forward together to address the gathering. Our prepared remarks focused on Dad's legacy and the future of craftsmanship the fellowship would nurture. As I spoke about the partnership's vision, I caught Mom in the audience, tears shining in her eyes, pride evident in her expression. "Today, we honor Richard Martinez, not just by remembering his work," I concluded, "but by ensuring his philosophy lives on through a new generation of craftspeople who understand that furniture isn't just functional. It's part of the human story, connecting us to materials, to tradition, to each other." Tori stepped forward. "The Richard Martinez Fellowship represents everything our father valued: integrity in materials, excellence in execution, and responsibility to future generations. We're proud to partner with Westridge Design Studio in creating this unique educational opportunity." As applause filled the workshop, I glanced at the apprentices, 4 young people poised to receive the gift of Dad's knowledge, his approach to wood and design, his understanding of craft as something simultaneously practical and deeply meaningful. In their eager faces, I glimpsed the future he had entrusted to us, a legacy extending beyond family to embrace a wider community of creators. The crowd dispersed gradually, moving to the reception area Howard had arranged in the design studio. I found myself momentarily alone near Dad's old workbench, now repurposed as a teaching station where Bernard would demonstrate joinery techniques. "He would be proud," Mom said, appearing beside me, her hand warm on my arm. "Not just of the fellowship, but of you and Victoria. How you've found a way forward together." I covered her hand with mine. "We're trying. It's not perfect, but it's better than I would have expected a year ago." "Perfect is overrated," she said with gentle wisdom. "Your father and I learned that over 40 years of marriage. What matters is the effort, the commitment to building something meaningful together despite differences." Across the room, I spotted Tori deep in conversation with Julia and Nathan, the 3 of them gesturing animatedly as they discussed some aspect of the curriculum. The workshop hummed with anticipation as we prepared for the apprentices' arrival, Teaching stations finalized, materials organized, schedules coordinated between Seattle and Cedar Grove. Tori had maintained the business flawlessly during my absence, securing 2 new client contracts and finalizing the second phase of the Sierra installation. Whatever personal turmoil she'd experienced following her breakup with Nathan remained carefully compartmentalized, her professional focus unwavering. "The press is confirmed for the opening ceremony," she informed me as we walked through the modified workshop space. "Local television, design blogs, even that furniture quarterly Dad always respected." "Nervous?" I asked, noticing the slight tension in her posture. "A little," she admitted. "This is bigger than anything we've done before. More visible, more significant for the industry." "We're ready," I assured her. "The curriculum is solid, the apprentices are talented, and the Martinez-Westridge partnership has Julia's full support." She nodded, then added hesitantly, "I've been thinking about Dad's cabin, about creating something similar for the apprentices, a retreat space where they could work on experimental projects without commercial pressures." The suggestion revealed how deeply Tori had come to understand Dad's philosophy in recent months. "That's a wonderful idea. Where would you locate it?" "There's that parcel adjacent to the cabin," she said. "It came on the market last week. We could build something simple but inspiring. A place for pure creation, like Dad had." It was exactly the kind of long-term thinking the fellowship program needed. Not just teaching techniques, but creating an environment that nurtured the same creative spirit Dad had embodied. I found myself genuinely excited by Tori's vision, by this tangible evidence of how she'd grown beyond the competitive, status-focused sister I'd known all my life. "Let's do it," I agreed. "We can present the concept to the board next month, after the program launches." The apprentices arrived on a clear January morning, their nervous excitement palpable as Bernard led them through the workshop, explaining equipment and safety protocols. Howard handled administrative details, while Nathan introduced the sustainability principles that would inform all their work. That afternoon, we gathered for the official launch ceremony, a small crowd of local dignitaries, design professionals, and media representatives assembled in the main workshop space. Julia had traveled from Seattle with several Westridge faculty members, lending institutional weight to the occasion. At Howard's signal, Tori and I stepped forward together to address the gathering. Our prepared remarks focused on Dad's legacy and the future of craftsmanship the fellowship would nurture. As I spoke about the partnership's vision, I caught Mom, in the audience, tears shining in her eyes, pride evident in her expression. "Today we honor Richard Martinez not just by remembering his work," I concluded, "but by ensuring his philosophy lives on through a new generation of craftspeople who understand that furniture isn't just functional, it's part of the human story, connecting us to materials, to tradition, to each other." Tori stepped forward. "The Richard Martinez Fellowship represents everything our father valued: integrity in materials, excellence in execution, and responsibility to future generations. We're proud to partner with Westridge Design Studio in creating this unique educational opportunity." As applause filled the workshop, I glanced at the apprentices. 4 young people poised to receive the gift of Dad's knowledge, his approach to wood and design, his understanding of craft as something simultaneously practical and deeply meaningful. In their eager faces, I glimpsed the future he had entrusted to us, a legacy extending beyond family to embrace a wider community of creators. The crowd dispersed gradually, moving to the reception area Howard had arranged in the design studio. I found myself momentarily alone near Dad's old workbench, now repurposed as a teaching station where Bernard would demonstrate joinery techniques. "He would be proud," Mom said, appearing beside me, her hand warm on my arm. "Not just of the fellowship, but of you and Victoria, how you found a way forward together." I covered her hand with mine. "We're trying. It's not perfect, but it's better than I would have expected a year ago." Perfect is overrated, she said with gentle wisdom. Your father and I learned that over 40 years of marriage. What matters is the effort, the commitment to building something meaningful together despite differences. Across the room, I spotted Tori deep in conversation with Julia and Nathan, the three of them gesturing animatedly as they discussed some aspect of the curriculum. There was no awkwardness evident between Tori and Nathan now, just professional focus on the program they'd helped create. She's changed, Mom observed, following my gaze. You both have. Before I could respond, Howard approached with a local reporter eager to interview the Martinez sisters together about our vision for the fellowship's future. The moment of quiet reflection with Mom ended, but her words lingered as Tori joined us for the interview, our responses complementing rather than competing with each other. Later that evening, after the guests departed and the apprentices settled into their campus housing, I returned to Dad's coastal cabin, my coastal cabin now, though it would always feel like his creation. The winter night was clear and cold, stars brilliant above the Pacific, the rhythmic sound of waves a soothing backdrop to my thoughts. I was surprised to hear a car approaching, headlights sweeping across the windows as it parked beside my vehicle. Moments later, a knock at the door revealed Tori, holding a bottle of Dad's favorite whiskey and 2 glasses. Thought you might be here, she said, hesitating on the threshold. Mind some company? It's been a day. I stepped back, welcoming her into the warm cabin. She'd never visited before, I realized. Dad's private retreat had remained closed to her, even as he'd begun sharing it with me in those final months. It's beautiful, she said, looking around with genuine appreciation. So essentially, Dad. Every detail considered, nothing wasted or superfluous. I poured the whiskey while she explored, her fingers tracing the tools arranged on the wall, the sketches pinned beside the work table, the simple furniture Dad had crafted specifically for this space. To the Richard Martinez Fellowship, I proposed, handing her a glass. And to Dad. To Dad, she echoed, the crystal tinking softly as we toasted. We settled in comfortable chairs before the wood stove, the fire casting dancing shadows across the cabin's cedar walls. Neither of us spoke immediately, the silence companionable rather than strained. I never understood before, Tori said finally, gazing into her whiskey. Why he chose you. It wasn't a rejection of me, was it? It was recognition of something essential in you that matched what he valued most. I think it was recognizing what each of us needed, I suggested. You've always thrived on challenge, on external achievement. I needed the security of the business to find my voice as a designer. He saw that, eventually. She nodded slowly. It took losing everything I thought I wanted to figure out what actually matters to me. Designing pieces that mean something. Creating beauty that lasts. The things Dad tried to teach me for years while I was too busy chasing trends and client approval. And now? I asked. Now I understand, she said simply. Too late to tell him, but not too late to honor what he built, what he believed in. We talked late into the night, not about Nathan or the inheritance or past hurts, but about the fellowship, about design philosophies, about memories of Dad that made us laugh and occasionally tear up. It wasn't quite reconciliation, but it was something equally valuable. Recognition of our shared connection to Dad's legacy and commitment to carrying it forward together. When Tori finally left, returning to her apartment in town, I remained on the porch watching her taillights disappear down the coastal road. The night air was crisp with salt and cedar, the stars impossibly clear above the Pacific. I thought about everything that had brought me to this moment. Dad's unexpected bequest, Tori and Nathan's betrayal, the Westridge Fellowship, the partnership that had emerged from chaos and hurt. None of it had unfolded as I would have chosen. Yet somehow the detoured path had led to a future with more possibility than I could have imagined a year ago. Dad's pocket watch was cool against my palm as I pulled it from my jacket, its familiar weight comforting in the darkness. Time reveals truth. Trust yours. My truth was this. I was Olivia Martinez, designer and craftsperson, daughter and sister, heir to a legacy and creator of my own future. The Martinez name would continue through my work, through Tori's designs, through the apprentices who would carry Dad's philosophy into new generations, and perhaps, most surprisingly, through the tentative new relationship emerging between two sisters who had spent a lifetime competing for the wrong prizes, now united in pursuing what truly mattered, creating beauty that would outlast us all, furniture that would become part of other families' stories long after ours had ended. As I turned back toward the cabin, toward warmth and rest after a day of new beginnings, I felt Dad's presence not as grief, but as guidance. He had given me not just a business or a building, but a purpose, a direction, a truth to trust. And in trusting it, I had found my way home. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out.